Good morning. It's football Sunday. I don't know. I don't have to fake excitement. That's the best part. Like I want to, you want this badass intro and you want to jump in. Do you guys ever see? Sorry to go off on a quick tangent to start the day off, but this is fitting for a Sunday. Did you watch the video where the person's got that hip hop groove going, and then it's talking about every fantasy podcast, and then like it stops and goes, "Hi, this is Mark with the Fantasy Five today on the show," and we should have excitement. I know I'm excited because number one, this is week one of our Fourth and Frame or Fantasy and Frames pregame show, and I got two of my favorites with me today. I'm Nate Markham, joining me with, I'd say, consistency every Sunday, fellas. How we looking at it? Am I going to see both your smiling faces, Keith?
As much as I can, for sure. And I'm just excited because the Falcons are undefeated. I'm going to celebrate that as long as I possibly can. But I am excited to be here, and definitely will try to make as many of these Sunday shows as possible. And I'm really excited to be part of Fantasy and Frames. Awesome. You guys do, or we do, now I can say that.
Yeah.
Amazing work, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
Well, and if you don't, anybody does not follow Keith over at the Daily Fix podcast or with any of his content, he's got TikToks, he's got probably Instagram. He's probably got some dances lined up for when all of his hits hit this week. I know I made a couple plays as a result. And throughout today, we will touch on a lot of those DraftKings picks that's going to make all of us some money and hopefully pay for my trip to England here in about 2 years. My wife and I are planning, and we're going to go visit our friend Jonathan Klonowski.
That's right.
Jonathan, good to see you again, my friend.
Yeah. That sounds good. Come and I'll come and take you to a pub or
fish and chips.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, obviously at the moment here it's been a slightly weird couple of days. So it's nice to have something to get excited about. Something else to think about. I'm excited. I'm decked out in my Fancy and Frames t-shirt. So thank you to Jorge for sending that across. And
I did not wear mine because the one he had for us at the Fantasy Expo, if anybody watching ran into me or Jorge at that expo, you'll know that he got that in an all cotton times 10 blend, which was about 6.5 pounds. And the basement we were doing the
sweating a little bit.
Man, it was the hottest. It was like you should see the people. It was just like this carousel of people that were just walking in fine, and they would walk around the whole booth and they would come out just drenched in sweat. And no one, it was not the most comfortable scenario, but everybody was together. It wasn't like me and Jorge were the only sweaty guys there trying to handshake and hand out cards that were just crumbling under the sweat. Everybody was, but it was still wonderful. I hope that you guys, Jonathan, I know it's a little bit of a trip for you, but Keith, hopefully these next couple of years we'll have.
No, I'm planning on going next year. I'm really excited.
Get your liver ready, or at least whatever you want. Let's get talking about Jorge laughing. We're stuck in an airport right now. If anybody's traveled over the last year, you know that you might as well plan your trip 6 days in advance, 14 hours per day of scheduling conflicts, and you might get from
point A to point
St.
B.
Louis to Indianapolis, where I could have drove. That's why we drove to the expo. But I'm driving the bus today, and we're going to go through and we're going to talk about each one of the games. And one of the things that I really wanted to do this week, since we don't have a ton of statistics to break down, we don't have a ton of anything. We have, like Jonathan said earlier, we have narrative to work off of, and that's all we can. So I want to paint this picture for everybody and kind of be a learning tool as well. These are some of the things maybe this week that we might be looking at. What should you be looking for? Are there some usage patterns? Are there some matchups? There are coaching decisions that could paint a picture for the rest of this season. Let's get right into it. Let's start with Philly at Detroit. Not exactly the most, we got to start slow, work our way in, but there's a lot with this game. I mean, really, guys, there's more to this matchup than meets the eye. I know I think it's a Transformers thing, but whatever. Right now, the odds on favorite right now would be Detroit plus 5.5. The money line for Detroit, people are potentially thinking that they're going to cover. Jonathan, you think Detroit can cover 5.5?
I feel like Philly might run away with this a bit. if you think about the NFC, obviously we watched the Bills Rams games. Philly seemed like the kind of favorite in the NFC at the moment. Can I say? Obviously, there are a lot of question marks about a lot of the big NFC teams, but I'm feeling quite good about these Eagles. I mean, if you think about what that passing attack was like 2 years ago, and now they're going in with AJ Brown and Devonta Smith coming into his second year, I'm feeling pretty good about these Eagles. It's just kind of about whether Jalen Hurts can take that next step forward. I think he probably can, but I think that's probably the biggest question mark. But I think if you look at both sides of the ball, the Eagles to me seem. I know the Lions are being kind of everywhere. A lot of people's kind of
right.
favorites over the offseason, but they didn't win that many games last year. I think. I think the Eagles will probably take care of them.
I think most people would probably agree. I don't know why the smart money in some places are saying Detroit, probably a little bit. Maybe it's the hard knock bias, but it's really that defensive line. This revamped defensive line with Philly against this much improved Detroit offensive line, which I think is the matchup initially that's going to dictate a lot of the game going forward, which could have an impact on both sides of the ball. Obviously, the more Detroit can hold on to the ball and stop that defensive line from getting pressure, the less Philly has to be on offense. Obviously, that's a pretty simple narrative, but that's going to be like the first thing that I want to see, this rotation on the defensive line, how well Penny Sewell and the rest of the Detroit Lions offensive line holds up. We do have some people joining us already, which is great. Good morning, David. Hopefully this first question, Keith, I'm going to spring at you. Sorry, we're going to get off Detroit Lions and Philly for just 1 second, but David has a question, and it's a half-point PPR. Michael Thomas or Juju? That's question 1. I'll let you answer that, Keith.
Juju, 1,000%. I think he's the favorite to get the most of the targets from the Tyreek Hill departure. And, no offense to Ben Roethlisberger, but he was not the quarterback that he even was earlier in his career for most of Juju's. Putting Mahomes with Juju Schuster, I'm excited. I got him in several leagues. I got him in several DraftKings lineups today. Yeah. I think he's a great play.
That's one of the things. We'll talk about Kansas City a little bit later, and I'm interested to watch that unfold because it was said earlier in the week, last week really, is Mahomes and company think that there's not going to be any given wide receiver one on a week-to-week basis. I don't know if that's just their way of saying we're spreading the ball around, try to stop us from all different facets, or if that's actually something that's going to play out. I don't believe so. I believe Juju's going to have a fantastic season. I think, payday year, all kinds of things work in his favor. Question number 2, Jonathan. Michael Carter, A.J. Dillon, Damian Harris.
So I think for me, this one's probably a little bit easier, and I would go with A.J. Dillon. There's been a lot of talk about Carter kind of getting more work in that Jets offense.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I really buy it. Damian Harris, I can see he scored. I can't remember how many touchdowns he scored last year, but you would expect that to regress. AJ Dillon, obviously I'm a Green Bay fan, so I'm a bit biased. But I find this team. I think it's going to be fascinating to see how they actually run that offense without Adams now. I think you'll see a lot of the time. I think you'll see both of the backs on the field at the same time. Mm-hmm. What's quite strange is that the 2 best skill position players are probably both of the running backs. So I feel as though you're going to see them both used heavily. Dillon does see a little bit of work in the passing game as well. And we just saw his usage increase as the season went on last year. So I think we'll see him quite a lot in the red zone. I think that one's fairly obvious for me. The other one, I'm really interested to see what Kansas City do. Obviously, a lot of what's made them great over the last couple of years is the off schedule plays and Tyreek getting open. So with him going, I'm really interested to see whether kind of Juju MVS can kind of replicate that at all, and how much is kind of the schedule plays and how much is off schedule. And I'm really interested to see Juju this year.
I am too. It's going to be one to pay attention to. 15 touchdowns for Damian Harris, by the way, earlier. And A.J. Dillon news and notes for Green Bay, and we'll get to that in a little bit too, is both tackles really more importantly, David Bakhtiari is out. We could see a ton of dump offs. We could see a lot more emphasis on the running game, but then again, maybe not. That's the kind of the double-edged sword. You don't have two good run blocking tackles that are there. Maybe there's a little bit of a hold up, and it's a tough matchup against a tough defense. I think that if there's a prop bet, I think it's 4.5 receptions by Aaron Jones. I think AJ Dillon's is half that. I think I would take the over on both of those this week. There's your bet of the week. If it doesn't hold true, Keith Fleming at Keith Fleming. And Matt says, "Yo, what up, guys?" And Matt's got a question for us, and I want to answer the questions. I know we'll get through the game.
Yeah.
I don't know about what time you guys got. I got all the time in the world. I'll hang around here and answer questions because I got everything done this morning.
I got nothing to do.
Fantastic. And the longer we talk, the more you can tell me about how the Falcons are undefeated still.
That's right.
Until about 3 o'clock.
Hey.
4 o'clock. I know. I'm kidding. I love everything. We're positivity today. I'm positive that Matt has to start one for a flex full point PPR. Robert Woods, David Montgomery, Brandon Ayuk, or he can snag Julio Jones off the waiver. Keith, I'll let you. Is any clear-cut answer for you?
I think there is because of the weather in the Chicago-San Francisco game. They're calling really high winds, which I think you're going to see a heavy dose of Montgomery, not only rushing, but also in the passing game. If you have any receivers, which unfortunately I do in some leagues, playing in that game, I mean, they're talking about significant wins. So just be careful. It's hard to throw in that. One, though, good thing about a running back is it's not hard to throw the ball to a running back. So I see Montgomery probably getting some extra receptions in this game and obviously getting a heavy run total with the weather that's expected.
Yeah. Jonathan, any
Yeah, I mean the weather is the first thing that came to my mind there. I think if the weather wasn't an issue, to me it would be Ayuk. Mm-hmm. I think the connection that he seems to have with Lance's ability to throw further downfield than Jimmy G against a Chicago team that I don't think are going to be very good this year. I would go. I think I would probably keep a look at the weather up until the game. If it does look as bad as Keith was saying, I would go with Montgomery. If it's not as bad as people are saying, and obviously it could change in the next couple of hours, then I would go with Ayuk. And I mean, on Julio, obviously we'll get to it later, but Godwin I think is supposed to play, but might be on a pitch count. So, but yeah, I think the three options that you've got there, well, I think all three would probably be better than Julio in my
Can I say something real quick on Julio too? I've read in several areas that they added him actually to replace Gronk, and that he is going to be used running the same routes and in the red zone a lot like Gronk was. And if that's true, there is some real value in Julio. I've actually looked in several leagues of trying to pick him up. I know it's one of those plays that it may turn out being nothing, but he's also a guy that, I mean, he still had 14 yards per reception last year in Tennessee. It's not like he can't, I don't think, play anymore. It's just, is that true? Is he going to get, say that kind of usage? But if that's, truth, they don't really have a great tight end option. So it kind of makes sense for him to take that sort of the field, take those routes, be more of a red zone target. So if you have a roster spot, you have a guy you're not in love with, I don't hate picking him up and seeing if, things go well.
Yeah. And this is pretty much exactly what Nate was saying at the start about look at different, usage. You look at the snaps, look at the routes that they're running and yeah, because if he's not playing, he's an easy person to just dump and try and find someone else.
With Tampa, when we get to them, also the few things got to watch. That interior offensive line being in shambles. What is the direction going to be? Is it going to be heavy Fournette? Is it going to be quick out passes? Is Julio going to play that role? They're going to try to bring another tight end and play 12 personnel to try to prevent that. Even though it's not the exterior that they're concerned with, it's more the interior offensive line, which 12 personnel doesn't implicitly help. But those are things to kind of focus on. Real quick follow up a little bit. Also, David said, adding to the question from earlier, would Dobbins be a better option? I don't think so, because Dobbins having the issue right now with maybe not even playing, or at least playing such limited snaps. I'm avoiding that at all costs. But I don't know if there's anybody in the Baltimore backfield. We'll talk about that in a minute, just to hash on a bad backfield. But a good backfield is in Cleveland. And Matt says he has Kareem Hunt. I am in agreement. I don't want to start Hunt and Chubb in the same matchup. I do like Hunt certain weeks as a flex play, but maybe not on the same team. And then last but not least, he's going to pick up Julio Jones for sure, just in case. Drop Alexander Madison. Not a big deal. I'm actually in favor of that as well. Hopefully Julio does have a role, and that could be a significant pickup, especially if we see Godwin have any type of issue with that recovery in the first game of action.
Yep.
And I'll take another question. This is for another half-point PPR. Go ahead, David, whenever you get that up. Real quick, circling back to Detroit and Philly. Keith, what do you think? Are you leaning with Jalen Hurts? That's obviously the biggest question, is that accuracy. Do you think we see a significant jump this season going forward?
I don't know if you see a significant jump in his accuracy. I just think that with A.J. Brown, you have such an explosive receiver that you can throw the ball short. He can make a big play. He has such a big catch radius. He's going to help them just make the offense more explosive. And the thing I'm most excited about the Eagles, they got the best player in this draft in Jordan Davis. As a Georgia fan, I'm telling you, that guy is a monster, and he will solve all their running issues almost single-handedly. They also had Nakobe Dean, who's a great linebacker for them. I think the Eagles defense is going to be really good, which is something that was not last year.
Right.
And it's going to be one of those cases where they just added a couple people and they're going to bring the defense together. And that's why I think they can contend. I don't think they're the favorite, though. I still, to me, you got to have a good quarterback for me to consider you the favorite. If Hurts shows during the season that, he can kind of make the league, absolutely, they should be a Super Bowl favorite at that point. But I'm looking at the Packers, teams like that have a QB that I know can get it done when it matters. If I'm looking for a future bet or something like that.
Yeah, and that's kind of the question, Jonathan, that people probably have is if you don't want to put so much pressure on Jalen Hurts, do you still stay run heavy, even though they added weapons in the passing game? And you think they still lean on the plethora of running backs they have?
Yeah, I mean they were good rushing the ball last year. I think there was something in third in rush DVOA last year. And actually, I think I noted down that Detroit were 31st in defensive rush DVOA. So you would think that you would run the ball. The issue for us looking at this from a fantasy perspective is who can you actually trust of the running backs? Because Miles Sanders should be the obvious answer, but we just haven't seen consistent production.
It's a little better down the stretch, though, in fairness. I know early it was awful, but they did give him the ball pretty consistently the last 6-7 weeks.
Yeah, and you would like to think that he would. I mean, us three scored the same amount of touchdowns as him this season, right? So it's kind of you would hope that he would outproduce us three at least.
And something tells me we'll probably start seeing questions surrounding a Miles Sanders or maybe a Kenneth Gainwell in a flex type role because of the potential for just how efficient we saw Philly's run game can be. David's question from earlier that he has to start two between Mike Williams, Jerry Jeudy, Christian Kirk, Elijah Moore, and Chase Claypool. I'm going to start, for me at least, Mike Williams is one for my guaranteed. I'm extremely high on Mike Williams, always have been. Feel like we've been saying for years, my narrative is I got the 1,000-yard guy one year. I got the double-digit touchdown one year. I wish they could meld into the same person, and last year we saw that. We saw at least, a lot of glimpses of that. And so I'll take Mike Williams. Keith, do you have another one? Is somebody else stand out?
It's Christian Kirk. Trevor's going to have – I'm so big on the Jags offense this year and their team just in general. You don't pay a receiver like they did to not use them and utilize them and get them the ball. And then on top of that, what I like about him is outside of ETN, he's going to be the guy I think that you see get a ton of targets, a lot of short receptions. And then obviously you got Jones being more of the deep target. But I love Kirk this week. It's a great matchup. Washington got better last year as the season went on. Don't get me wrong. Their secondary did, but it was still one of the bottom third ones. And I just think – I really think Jackson's offense is going to hum today, and you're going to see a lot of Christian Kirk, a lot of ETN. I like him a lot, especially a PPR league.
Gotcha. And this question, super important. This is, I Me and Mike kind of tagged up on. He got one of his first auction leagues and was bouncing off. Great guy. So don't screw this up. You guys will have to live with this for the rest of your life. In his flex, it's a full point PPR. Chase Edmonds, Darnell Mooney, maybe Rashad Bateman. And I'm going to let you two talk about that. And I'm going to bring in, hello, Dave Ibrahim.
Hey.
What's going on, guys?
Not too much. Dave, I'm going to give you a chance to answer this after these two guys do. Just know that if you get this wrong, you're never allowed back, from what I understand. That's kind of the caveat, which is not true because there's no wrong answers here. Just
I'll take Edmonds, and Mooney would have been the answer for me. He had a 25% target share last year with Allen Robinson. I think it's going to be close to 30. Again, that weather concerns me in that game. The Patriots have historically, over the last couple of years, really struggled with these smaller backs, especially that are good at catching passes out of the backfield. And I just worry the Ravens are going to rout the Jets, which would mean Bateman, unless he catches a big play early, there's just probably not a huge ceiling for him to where I think Edmonds is going to be involved early and often. And in that PPR, I'd be shocked if Edmonds doesn't catch 4 to 5 passes at least today.
Gotcha. I will point out the one thing I'm cautiously optimistic with Edmonds is the groin injury that he's come up with on the list this week. It's something to pay attention to. I love Chase Edmonds. I have him everywhere. I'm starting him everywhere still. But if there's ever any reason to hedge, if you want to just take out all risk of adverse plays whatsoever, maybe pay attention to that. But that's just something to be aware of. As we welcomed in Dave. Dave, you got Connect Go up and rocking, it looks like, getting started. For anybody not familiar with that, it's essentially designed to connect your favorite fantasy analyst to yourself and can answer your questions. Basically, like anybody that's asking questions here, you have that opportunity to ask a person who you might actually trust instead of me. You can pay just a little bit.
Whatever, Mr. Top 5.
Sound advice from someone else. But, Dave, we're talking about game one. We've now gotten about through the first quarter of Detroit and Philly, basically. We've established that Jalen Hurts and Detroit Philly might be a little run-heavy right this year. The one thing I want to pay attention to exactly is he going to funnel the passes to A.J. Brown, his new shiny toy? Does he still spread the ball around? And I think that's something we're going to see. But the narrative question on the other side of the ball that I just want a yes or no answer from each one of you guys, because I'm torn, was Amon-Ra St. Brown's breakout, despite DeAndre Swift being out, and we know that helped funnel. Was his breakout real? Jonathan, yes or no?
I don't like giving a no to a certain extent. Nope. No, to a certain extent. Can I add that in?
I know. And that's what makes this question so hard, because if you're asked a yes or no, you were either taken aside, which either means the people that believe in him are hearing you say he's worthless and terrible and won't produce. If you say yes, the people that don't believe him think, oh, bandwagon, he's not going to produce at the wide receiver, 35% target share or whatever, crazy narratives that people throw out. But I understand what you're saying without you having to say it.
Yeah, so the issue for me this offseason has been his value. I don't really have him a lot just because there were always other players around there that I prefer. The issue that I kind of had with him was just that one of the reasons that he did so well was just that how many injuries there were with kind of Hockenson out, Swift out. There weren't really any other wide receivers there. So it all got funneled to him. I do think he's a really good player. I don't think we'll see him get back to that level again anytime soon. I mean, I actually have a question on that. One decision that I've got is between him and Devonta Smith in a full PPR league.
I would go with St. Brown.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was leaning. Like, I do still like him. I just normally in drafts there was normally someone else that I preferred at that price.
I think for the Lions too, and you're right, the target share is not going to get back to that point. Like, it's just not. But it's just like with TJ Hawkinson, I think that they're going to be better together. Like, I understand, like, they may not get the targets, but the offense is going to be better, which should mean more touchdowns, more opportunities for all of them. And just the fact that they're not going to have so much attention. I mean, I think what was so impressive about what he did was by the end of that, I mean, what else was the defense trying to stop but him? And he was still doing that kind of, production. So he's a stud. And I'm excited. When they get Williams, that offense is really interesting when he comes back sometime, hopefully this year.
Yeah. And Dave, I'm on Ross St. Brown. I'll give you a choice. I'm on Ross St. Brown or Juju this week.
Going Cam Newton. I'm going to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Look, here's the thing. People forget in 2018, I want to say, Jared Goff was a stud. Mm-hmm. That was the year he had Cooper Kupp in his rookie year, Robert Woods, and Brandon Cooks. I forget who was tight end, maybe Gerald Everett and Todd Gurley when he was in his prime as well. Jared Goff can throw the ball. I have faith in Jared Goff enough that he can make Amon-Ra star. He's got the potential. We saw he was the clear-cut one last year. I'm not worried about DJ Chark. Hawkinson's still going to get targets, so is DeAndre Swift, but I'm comfortable, knowing that he's going to get 8 or 9 targets, probably catch 6 or 7 of them for 80, 90 yards and a touchdown. Very confident in St. Brown.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to see. For each matchup, maybe we might have a little play for anybody doing your DFS. Keith's DFS pick of this game would be the aforementioned TJ Hawkinson for 4,900. I think all the points that he made earlier, I think that this could be a situation where Detroit is actually an offensive team. And this might be more of I'd hate to call it a shootout because that seems crazy, but we might. Or these are the narratives to watch on the Philadelphia defense more than anything. As much as I like certain players on Detroit, fantasy-wise, not a ton outside of maybe, the hard knock star Rodrigo or Derek Barnes, their snaps to pay attention to. Watch the Philly line defense, the defensive line rotation. You mentioned earlier about Jordan Davis, one of my favorites, but he's already suffering early in the season that his conditioning, they have to pull him out way more often than they wanted to. One big thing about him.
Yep.
And that's the only downside is he'll never have IDP week-to-week relevance when you don't know his snap share. But such an imposing force. And the D-line rotation is good enough between – I was getting ready to stay between everybody. I was just going to rattle off the entire Philadelphia defensive line and their linebacking core, which doesn't do any good for anybody. But something to pay attention to it, though, is Nakobe Dean's rotation at linebacker. We want to see Kazir Wyatt. We want to see TJ Edwards. We want to see Nakobe Dean. And exactly how Philadelphia plans on using that. That's going to be important for IDP linebacking core going forward. What we also want to do is, this is where Jorge's better than I am, is these little overlays. And the first one, Dave, I'm going to start. We're going to talk a little bit about underdog fantasy. If you use promo code FRAMES, damn it, I know he's going to be mad at me. They're going to match up to, I'm waiting for Jorge to text me and tell me. I think it's 100 as well. But I would invest more than 100. I would probably put a couple thousand because we're going to tell you how to double that money today. Dave, it's on you to start. Let's pick a prop here of Jalen Hurts. I'm going to start off with, I think the one that we all kind of are intrigued by, the 48.5 yards rushing, higher or lower for you, Dave?
I think lower. I think they're going to bottle him up. Look, A.J. Brown is really the only weapon I'm worried about on that offense. I think they're going to make sure that they take him out. I don't know. I can't see him, really scrambling or doing much. So I'm going the under on the 48.5 rushing.
All right. Well, let's go to one more there. Let's do the half of the rushing touchdown for Jalen Hurts. Jonathan, over or under?
You see, I would actually go over on both of those. I think I'm not sure how good personally. I think the Eagles win this game. I think they will be on top. I feel like Hurts is going to continue to be the main part of the rushing attack. So mm-hmm. I would go over on both of those.
All right. And Keith, finally, let's give you a good one here, which, player's choice. You pick one that you feel confident about.
I like the over on the 48.5. He had 8 games last year where he had over that total, and he had another 6 that he had in the 38 to 44 yard range. So he consistently is at least around that number. What I love about Hurts is it takes one run and he can basically get half of that or more. I just think he will end up surpassing that number. The rushing score, I honestly would stay away, but if I had to take one, I'd take the under. He had a lot of multiple touchdown games, but actually only scored rushing touchdowns in 5 games last year.
Wow. So 9 of them for the season, which is pretty impressive. And yes, I never should doubt Jorge. He even has it written in big, bold letters. Again, reminder, use promo code FRAMES, FRAMES, for 100% match up to $100 on your first deposit. San Francisco 49ers, Chicago Bears. A couple narratives, guys. Obviously, this is Lance's first start of the season. We saw what he could do last year in limited time. Obviously, the fantasy upside is incredible. I think that I've seen him as high as the QB 7 on the season, preseason rankings by some. I've seen others that don't necessarily believe. First game without George Kittle, and with the weather being instrumental, do we put much precedence or anything on this game whatsoever? Or do we just kind of chalk this one up to it's going to be a learning curve with all those things working against him, Dave?
See, I'm one of the few people who thinks Trey Lance is going to be one of the biggest busts since what's the guy? Russell.
Cam Newton? Oh, no.
I'm not a believer in Trey Lance. The dude has played, 17 games in his life, right? 20, I lie. 3 of them in the NFL, and everyone's expecting him to be a stud. I get that they paid a pretty price for him, but I've not seen anything in those 3 games he started last year that impressed me whatsoever. Really, I mean, you got Debo on the under. I think there's going to be a lot of, little short intermediary routes, but I don't know. I'm not expecting too much, truth be told.
And that's, I can tell you, I know a lot of people, the polarizing, there's very few less polarizing than what Trey Lance is going to bring. And every game is going to bring out, I told you so's, or you're wrong and you're stupid. And I think that we're just going to, it's going to stem, and we know what's going to circle around is that rushing upside. We know that. We saw that in those limited games where he had 20 fantasy points used exclusively with his legs. And you hear the narrative, he rushes more than Lamar ever did, and he's got better efficiency on the ground. All those things will have to play out. I'm actually more intrigued on the other side of the ball, Jonathan. The Bears last year, if you look up until really towards the end of the season, they didn't cater to Justin Fields. And in my opinion, I think that's the key to this whole design for the Bears offense is play to his skill set, which we saw last year against the San Francisco 49ers, where they actually had him roll out. They had him do more bootlegs. He got it outside and used his legs, and he had 10 carries for, I believe it was 103 yards, and he was phenomenal. Do they actually cater to Justin Fields this year, Jonathan? And is it going to be a positive?
I think they're going to have to, because of that offensive line. They're going to have to move him away, because I know, especially against the 49ers as well. Because I think they have to. I mean, you look at the coaching last year was not good. Obviously, there's been a change there. I think they have to. If they're smart, they will.
Yeah.
Because that's what he's good at. That's his athleticism is one of those. Is one of the reasons why they took him.
Right.
I mean, for fantasy, I'm not sure. To me, he's probably going to be a bit more of a kind of. You're not going to be starting him every week. This week, I certainly wouldn't want to be starting him. But occasionally, I think there will be times where he's going to do well because of his rushing upside. And then beyond that, there aren't that many weapons. The 2 clear weapons that he's got are Mooney and Komet. So, I don't think you're going to be using him consistently, but I think he's going to be a spot starter occasionally if your usual starter is injured or on bye.
Yeah, and you touched on Darnold Mooney. Keith, Darnold Mooney is your DFS play out of this game, 5,700. Darnold Mooney over under 80 yards this game.
Again, because of the weather, which has changed since I made that list, I would take the under. And actually, if now, gun to my head, I would change it to Elijah Mitchell at 5,400 as the best play. The Niners are so good at running the ball. Shanahan, is the master of it. And I think that if it's going to be a game, a lot of running, Mitchell, he was fantastic last year. He was one of me and Joe's favorite plays over and over in DraftKings because low owned, he wasn't expensive, and people just don't respect him. He's really good. And I think he'll have a big game.
Yep.
It could be a positive game script for them as well. I'm not sure what the handicap is, but I'm guessing it's sort of 7.
San Francisco's nearly that. They're 6.5 point favorites. The money line or the over-unders at 40.5. Pretty low implied point total. A lot of that has to do most likely with the weather. Austin, what is up, my friend? If you have any questions, start sit-wise. Obviously, throw them this way over in the chat. We'll be happy to answer them for you. Hey, Dave, real quick, I got a question for you. You see the same roll out of Debo. So if you're down on Trey Lance, are you down on Debo?
Down on 49ers as a whole, especially with Trey Lance on the center. Jimmy Garoppolo is not a bad quarterback. I'm not saying he's a
the Patriots bias.
No, not at all. But look, he was serviceable. I think he helped Deebo Samuel because you knew that the pass was the first option. That's where Deebo thrived, right? You didn't know if he was running, if he was catching the ball. Trey Lance, they know he's a Lamar Jackson. He's a run-first guy. I think that's going to hurt Deebo Samuel. I don't think he's going to get as many opportunities as he did last year as far as a surprise attack, if you will. So I'm down on every single 49er this year. I actually think they finished dead last.
Yeah, in the 2 games. So in the games, really. So week 5, Debo had 3 catches for 9 out of 9 targets, 58 yards, had 13 yards on the ground, did have a touchdown to salvage the week. And week 17, 3 of 6 for 63 and the touchdown, and 7 for 19 on the ground. So 2 of Debo's lowest production weeks were with Trey Lance at the helm. Maybe something to pay attention to. I've been down on Debo myself just because utilization and efficiency can't hold up, in my opinion. I think he's explosive. I think there was a stat that if you took away all of his rushing touchdowns, he was still the wide receiver 2 on the season last year, something like that, which is great. But again, if you take away the efficiency and it regresses to the norm to an extent, I believe that I'm down probably more than others. He is the wide receiver 5 on the week, according to Fantasy Pros. I can probably name 12 other receivers I think I would rather start. We don't have to do that because I think that just seems like it's a long process, and we're half an hour in, and we're just going to get to game number 3. But real quick, one thing from the IDP side I want people to pay attention to is let's see just how dominant. Over on Thursday nights, Club Fantasy and Fantasy and Frames have teamed up to bring you another IDP podcast called You Down with IDP. And on that, Joe Zolo mentioned his concern with Roquan Smith. Roquan Smith, he believes there's a potential for him to not, mail it in, but to not be happy with the overall impact. And I believe that there is something to be said about that. I don't want to ever assume professional athletes just going to be all whiny and just chuck it. But something to pay attention to is, just which direction he wants. Does he want to get the bag and play and say, I told you so? Or does he say, I'm going to show you and you need to pay me and I'm going to give you what you pay me for worth in play? I don't believe that's going to be the case. I think he's going to be dominant. I love Nicholas Morrow. Can't wait to see both of those two in the Matt Eberflus defense. At safety, Jaquan Brisker is a very popular IDP target as a rookie. Jaquan Brisker with this thumb injury that he was recovering from, I'm interested to see the impact it has on him this week. And I wouldn't take too much credence into a down week if the thumb is not 100% healthy. I like the upside play, though, just in case you need a pivot at safety. You probably shouldn't. Let's pivot from San Francisco, Chicago to Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. Guys, this is a newly led Pittsburgh offense. Jonathan, yes or no, Mitch Trubisky is better for this offense than Ben Roethlisberger was?
Yes, but not to a point where we're going to be raving about Mitch Trubisky. I think. I mean, the issue for me with Pittsburgh is that offensive line, and whether, because their weapons are so good, and it's just whether that offensive line can hold up enough to get the ball downfield. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger, his net yards per attempt last year was one of the lowest in the league. And so we should see a completely different offense. I would hope to see, Deontay Johnson's A-dot increase, see him getting further downfield and not just catching a load of sort of short and intermediate passes.
Yeah.
So you would like to think that Mitch Trubisky would help that, but yeah.
Big Ben had the mobility of a Christmas tree, guys. Like, he was hurting last year.
Yeah.
And you got to remember as well, Mitch Trubisky, when he got pulled from Chicago, he had a winning record. I want to say he was 5-2, 6-1, something like that. He was playing okay. Was he studly? Probably not. But don't forget, he was the second overall pick. He's got the skill. He's got the talent. Now he's got a half-decent O-line. He's got the weapons. I mean, I have a full faith in Mitch Trubisky.
All right, perfect. It is said here, Dave believes that Mitch Trubisky will outscore Trey Lance in week 1.
He'll outscore him all 17 weeks.
All 17 weeks.
I'll make that bet. I've got no problem with that.
Don't make that bet because he won't be
plays.
starting by week 17.
Yeah, I think
he's starting by about week 8.
Well, if he's that high on Trubisky, he's not. The Steelers. I mean, his narrative would be that
he's
he's
captain
starting
for a reason, guys.
Oh.
I mean, he's team captain. You don't give someone that title who doesn't deserve it.
He was drafted ahead of Patrick Mahomes. That has to say something. Pivoting. Sorry, we don't need to go off that tangent. Sorry, Chicago Bears fans. I know that's sensitive. I think that's probably Mike Carter. If you're still listening, you're probably a Bears fan, and that probably stings. But deal with it. Austin, earlier we talked about Christian Kirk. I think collectively we're all high on Christian Kirk. He got drew the ire of Trevor Lawrence early in preseason camp. I don't think he's the alpha one, like can beat one-on-one man coverage on the outside as much as they would like, but I believe he will have a heavy target percentage and be valuable in this offense going forward. Guys, the question I have also that this is going to be intriguing is Cincinnati paid a boatload of money to upgrade this offensive line. The Steelers now have led the NFL in sacks for the past 5 seasons. Does Cincinnati hold up to the Pittsburgh pass rush? And do we think that this is the key going forward, something to focus on? Joe Burrow being Joe Burrow and passing from his feet, not being on his ass. That's got to be huge, right?
Oh, yeah. The biggest thing to me for them going forward, because I do think the offensive line is going to be much better, is Burrow's got to learn when he's going to take a hit, get down. Like, don't be the hero all the time, because this Bengals team could win the Super Bowl. They got there last year. They shouldn't have. I really believe, normally the Super Bowl loser, you don't want anything to do with them next year. I think it's different when they really weren't supposed to be there. Like, sure. They got a couple of breaks. They were a year early. Their best 2 players are on rookie contracts. As long as Burrow can stay healthy, this team is going to be legit. I know they have a really tough schedule, but that passing offense is scary. Mixon's a great running back. Mm-hmm. I'm excited about Cincy. I just hope Burrow, look, dude, they got you a good offensive line. You don't always have to be the hero, get the extra yard, take that big hit. Protect yourself some. That's what I want to see this year more than anything.
Go on. Sorry, I was going to say, let me pose a hypothetical. The Raiders knock out the Bengals in the first week of the playoffs, right? And Joe Burrow doesn't have his great 3-game run. Is everyone as high on Joe Burrow? I mean, do you think that he's got that? I think it's just a little bit overhyped because he had a decent playoff run. He doesn't have that playoff run.
He led a game-winning drive in all 3 games to the Super Bowl. He's 22 years old. That's a pretty big deal.
It is. And
he won a national championship the year before. This dude's a winner, man.
Yeah, look, I'm not saying, I just think he was getting overdrafted big time this year.
Oh, no, that's different. I'm talking about, though, his performance and being a great quarterback. No, I'm with you for fantasy.
Yeah, I'm right there, too. I think that and I was one of the guys that did that. I see this potential 45, 40, actually, I guess 5,000 is probably with the extra game now, the new big game cut season total. but there is an upside. The thing that concerns me is what should be utilized in Cincinnati is, Jonathan, this offensive line being so valuable, both monetarily as well as for Joey B, also benefits Joe Mixon just as much. And here's this highly effective running back. What say you that they don't just feed him 25 times and prevent Joe from seeing added pressure and just control the clock? Do you think that's even a possibility? Or are they already have the shiny, they got the big screen and the sexy offense, and they just want, or I bet a car narrative is probably better. They have a Lambo, they want to drive it. They don't want to leave it in the garage and just take the bike out, right?
Yeah, I suppose that now they probably do have that option, whereas previously they didn't. I suppose we'll see, because that offensive line, it doesn't need to be kind of top 5, top 10. It just needs to be a little bit better, from being bottom 5 to actually, to help both the passing game and rushing. I think we possibly could see them be a little bit more balanced. I think it's one of those things that's going to depend game to game. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So, but on the other side of the ball, running wise, as efficient as Mixon can be, that was the knock on Najee last year, right, Dave? Is his 3.9 yards per carry for a person who had over 1,000 yards. You have to go back almost 11 years to find someone that was as inefficient. That offensive line did not get any better. It really didn't. But does the addition of Trubisky with a little bit of athleticism, I have to see what the effect on the defenses will be scheme-wise. Do they worry about the pass? Do they still stack the box? Does that hurt? How high are you on Najee in this week and going forward?
I think he's going to deliver the stats where you drafted him. I think he's going to be serviceable. He's going to get 20, 25 carries a game. Mm-hmm. He'll get you, anywhere from 80 to 150 yards, probably get you a touchdown. He'll be serviceable. Does he take a step back? I don't think so. I'm not believing that narrative that they're not going to give him as much of a workload. Who's behind him? Benny Snell? I mean, right. there's really no one. They're going to
Jalen Warren.
Yeah, 3.9 yards. It's not. That's not a poor stat. It's okay. It's good. He's going to give you those results. I'm a little bit worried about that foot, so I don't know how much that's going to impact him. The Liz Frank, I think it's called.
Yeah, sprain that he had.
So we will see, but he's going to get the opportunity. That's 100% for sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say the issue for me with Najee is the passing game usage, because last year I'm pretty sure I think he led running backs in receptions.
He did.
I think I'm right in saying. I mean, he's got something like 70, 75 receptions.
74, yeah. He was first in targets as well.
Yeah, and I don't think he repeats that now that Big Ben isn't his quarterback. Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's. I mean, for me, I personally don't have a lot of Najee Harris just because around that area, I was always looking at someone like Joe Mixon, someone like Saquon, Aaron Jones. They were just always players that I preferred. I think Dave's kind of got it right that he's safe, but that upside, I can't quite see it that the other players have.
That's the thing when you go in. What type of draft approach do you like? If you want a safe first round pick, from a bell cow perspective, that provides a nice floor. The ceiling though is kind of what everybody shoots for, and that's what it is gonna entail. Like we said with Burrow, that's the upside, is spreading the ball to all three receivers, and that's the question going into week one. A lot of people want to see, is this Jamar Chase or T Higgins gonna lead? And I don't know if I believe the narrative as the season progressed. T Higgins towards the end, obviously with Jamar, but you're comparing a rookie to a second-year player. It's not apples to apples. There's still a learning curve, even as great a season as Jamar had. I don't know if Tyler Boyd will be implemented a little bit, but that's the ceiling that I was chasing with Joe Burrow was, 5,000 and 45 to 50 touchdowns. And I think Mixon eats into that. From a defensive standpoint, there's not much to pay attention to on either side of the ball. I mean, there's a lot. I want to see the Pittsburgh defense, linebacking core and how that shakes up. I believe, Jonathan, you had a question for me from an IDP standpoint in this game. That was important.
Yeah, I did. And it is important because it is the Fantasy and Frames staff league. And I'm up against Keith this week. So, just pick whoever's your favorite and then just then. Yeah, we'll see. It's so I have Minkah Fitzpatrick and Jesse Bates. So it's two kind of very highly rated players in IDP. And so the first thing is, who would you pick? But also kind of what should new IDP players be looking for if they're making decisions like that, where they're two, well-known, highly rated players.
Gotcha. Keith, just in case you need an answer here, I'll wait.
Check your PayPal
name. The answer to Mike right there is I would lean in this matchup Minkah, simply because I believe that it's going to be snaps. And I'm not a big Minkah fan, but I do believe that he's on the field, and they both play very similar roles. They both are more free safety. They both have great playmaking ability. We're talking two alpha free safeties. There was the whole concern with Jesse Bates, and I worry about Dax Hill just a little bit in that, is Cincinnati angry? Are they upset about this whole holdout type thing, and they're going to maybe play him in a little bit more? I don't believe that's going to happen, but that could. Pittsburgh's never taken Minkah off the field. He's going to play every single snap. They're going to be on the field a ton because I think Cincinnati can move the chains, and that's what I would most likely lean. And as far as that goes, how I would determine, I want to look at snaps. I want a potential to see who's going to be on the field more. And I know there's no correlation necessarily directly between that. We're learning that more and more. It's a crapshoot, I guess some people would say. But I look at two even scenarios. If there was a potential game script narrative that I could play, I would utilize that. If a linebacker or a safety in this case is playing in the line of scrimmage and they're a run-heavy game, that could have some importance. That could play a benefit, lean one way or the other. But in this, two evenly matched, two similar roles, I'm looking at any shortcomings for one of the player, which was Dax Hill for Cincy, and playing time snaps total, offensive scene leans Minkah's way. So
makes sense.
Perfect. Sorry, Keith. Hopefully it's doesn't benefit. Maybe they tied. You don't need anyway. You already had Josh Allen going, so it's no big deal. Let's go South Beach, New England, Miami. New England, this offensive line, I think we were joking earlier, Matt Patricia's in charge of it. So if you have any Miami defensive players, load up. Dave, this one, I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to go to you because you're the New England fan, and I'll let you go ahead and tell us why New England has a chance in this game with an offense that looked mediocre at best this preseason, and a Miami team that seems to always play really, really well against the Patriots.
Yeah, the last quarterback to beat the Dolphins was Cam Newton in 2020, Week 1. That's right. For some reason, Miami just absolutely have the Patriots numbers. I'm a Patriots fan. Everyone knows that, but I'm not a believer in them this year. I don't think Mac Jones is the real deal. Our wide receiver corp is average at best.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. I think Miami, they've got the weapons now with Hill. Chase Edmonds is decent. It's going to be tough sledding, to be honest, especially there in South Beach. So It's just one of those things that, Miami always just seems to take down the Pats.
Exactly. Brian, great to see you, my friend. Hollywood, as always. I am flabbergasted when I heard Mike McDonald mention this, and he actually said it, that Tua has the most accurate and catchable ball he has ever seen.
No.
Keith, how crazy is that comment? Or is there something to be said that maybe Mike McDonald is actually blind and he's been coaching without having sight for his entire career, and that's a potential?
He's trying to build up his young quarterback, and I get that. I actually think that this season could go either way for Tua. I would not be shocked if he ends up, by the end of the year, people talking about this is, another of the great, young quarterbacks. I would also not be surprised if he's not starting by the end of the year, and the Dolphins are looking for a quarterback next year, whether it be through the draft or free agency. I just want to warn people, though, that are so big on the Dolphins this week. I do have the Dolphins winning this game. Bill Belichick with a month to prepare for Tua, don't doubt on that. I do think there is a chance that New England's defense is going to come to play, and Miami's going to also have trouble scoring, which is why overall I think this is kind of a stay-away game for DFS and honestly fantasy lineups as well.
Is Jaquan Bentley still on the Pats?
Yeah.
He is. I mean, he's a sneaky DFS play. He's probably going for virtually free.
Bentley, he's. I mean, honestly, for I think I don't know where he's at in the rankings. Let's see, he's probably around LB 40.
He always seems to deliver on against the Dolphins.
Yeah,
that guy. So
he's LB 44. He does always. He should be heavily involved, especially if they. That goes to that narrative that I want to watch and pay attention to. Is we're going to see one of two things out of Tua. Like Brian said, 4 straight games over 80% last year. I mean, when you're throwing it 2 yards, it does make it easier. I'm kidding. I'm joking all sides. I am not a Tua hater. I believe that it's easy to jump on that bandwagon. The accuracy is 100% something that I'm going to focus on because he showed that with Jalen Waddle. They have that connection. We know how dynamic Tyreek is. We know how, potentially dynamic having Chase Edmonds in that passing game can be. This week, just hold on to your pants because two things are going to potentially happen. One, Tyreek's going to have, 4 targets, 2 catches, 24 yards and no touchdowns. And everybody's going to say, I told you so. And you're going to have a chance to buy early. I have Tyreek lower. I mean, he was my wide receiver 14 preseason. I know that was like 8 spots lower than consensus, but I would like Jonathan, you mentioned earlier, so many of those plays with the Chiefs were, not by design and unscripted. And that's the connection that you can't just establish immediately with your player. It's going to be something.
That you're a Chiefs fan, right?
Yeah.
When y'all needed a yard or two, there was nobody better at getting open quickly than Tyreek Hill for those little quick first downs. And I do think that in an offense that's tailored to getting him the ball quickly, he's still going to be a big problem.
And that's exactly what could happen. I really do believe that. The downside to Tyreek is that when you needed a game for him to step up for your fantasy team, right, he was not on the field. He had the most boom and bust games of any top receiver for quite
50
some
and then
time.
He had 5 the next.
Yeah, and that's the only thing that I hate, and I think it's going to be hard to pick each time. I touched earlier on Chase. I was going to say I touched earlier on Chase's groin. But
assume you did that.
Thank you. If I did, he's in for a good game.
When he plays great today,
the magic touch.
Exactly.
But look, Tyreek's the kind of guy who he can blow the top off a defense. I mean, the game was it last year? I want to say against the Bucks. In the first quarter, he went over 200 yards and 2 or 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
He was on pace for like 800 yards and 8 touchdowns that game. But then to that point, the next 3 quarters, he didn't really do much. I want to say he got an additional 70 yards after that. So,
which is crazy to think of. That's not nothing, right? But after 200, it's huge. It's
exactly. Yeah, but he's that kind of guy. One play can just make your fantasy week with Tyreek. He's that kind of guy.
If there was a stat I wish I had to check out, I would love to see his receiving yards on scramble or broken plays. I would bet he probably had the largest percentage of those of anybody in the league, which again, is that a sticky stat? I don't know. Some people just have the knack for getting open and using your speed and coming back to the quarterback, and maybe he'll get used to that with Tua. I hope, nothing bad out of Tyreek. I'm not angry at him for leaving. I don't blame him. They didn't want to pay him.
I hope not. You traded him. So, I mean, it's not like he had a choice.
Well, he did have a choice. That was his decision. He chose which place he wanted to go, ultimately, from what I understand.
But I'm saying they weren't going to re-sign him.
No, correct. And that's why, but he asked, he was kind of pushing for that. But again, I don't blame him. If you're not going to get re-signed for big money. Dude, exactly. No taxes or
I was going to say the tax.
Hell yeah, exactly.
So many unknowns when a player goes to another team. I mean, I know it was a running back, but if anyone remembers Demarco Murray going from an absolute stud to a dud when he went from the Cowboys to the Eagles, I don't know. Are we going to see that with AJ Brown, with Tyreek Hill, with Devontae Adams? Just so many variables. So it's really, I mean, without seeing him on the field, in a Dolphins uniform, it's just too hard to tell.
Yeah. And I mean, another player on Miami that I'm totally out on from the preseason is Mike Goseki, who's been inline blocking. He hasn't been split out, but I have a tight end question for you relating to Mike Goseki. Is Brian going to pay up for Mark Andrews in DK? It's more of a cash game build than just going like maybe with Cole Kmet or someone that's a little bit cheaper.
I'm never going to be against somebody playing any tight end versus the Jets. They were dead last in points allowed on DraftKings last year. But I will say I really like going likely in that game at 2,500, and then it gives you a ton of money to build your lineup there. I got a lot of stacks of Lamar, likely, and then, I mean, you've got $40,000 for the rest of your lineup.
And even if he doesn't, let's say likely's not getting touches at 2,500,
Right.
that typically means that Lamar's probably running more than anything. I mean, I guess you could maybe stack Bateman with that and hope it doesn't all go to Andrews, but there's a lot of interesting plays that because you can leave Lamar as a solo. You don't have, and yeah, me too. And you don't have to play him with anybody stack wise, and it's good. But we touched earlier a little bit about the red zone touches with Damian Harris, the efficiency. I wonder if New England gets behind at some point. If we start to see Ramondre, that's something to focus on for everybody going forward. And let's see what Mac Jones does, because this preseason anomaly of him being so bad could be out of proportion. I think Miami's a tough matchup. On the defensive side, Jerome Baker always has great matchups against New England. Week 1 in both past 2 seasons, I think he's combined for 24 tackles in those 2 games. So get Jerome Baker. Brandon Jones is a great matchup too against that offensive line in New England. There's some interesting plays to be had as far as that defense goes. Your favorite DFS play was Chase Edmonds. We've talked a lot about him. Again, pay attention to the groin just a little bit, but you won't know that before the game time. One thing we know before game time in Cleveland and Carolina is that Baker Mayfield will want to absolutely destroy everything Cleveland, from the Browns to LeBron. Will Kevin Stefanski actually let Jacoby Brissett do anything in this game? Do any of us have any feelings of, I believe in Jacoby Brissett? Jonathan, yay, nay?
No,
Okay.
I don't. I think it's a run heavy approach. I don't really believe in many of Cleveland's weapons either, outside of Amari Cooper. Yeah, I don't really believe it. And on the Baker side, I mean, that Browns secondary looks really impressive. I think they were something like 7th in defensive pass DVOA last year. So yeah, I think it's going to be tricky for both quarterbacks.
Yeah. As far as the running game, Dave, the CMC workload, do we think they just go, we just got the car out of the shop, we're going to still go take it on the Autobahn and do $180?
Just quickly, you mentioned Brandon Jones. Him and I have beef on TikTok. I always reply with "Pats are on the East," and he replied the other day with a broom. He's always anyway, funny dude. Check it out. Check his TikTok out. You always see him in my comments. Anyway, no, look, I'm not worried about CMC. I drafted him everywhere I could. You know, the injuries he sustained, they're not injuries I'm worried about being reoccurring. The good thing was last year, they shut him down, week 6, week 7? So he had a full season to recover. You know, unlike Saquon, who they kept on trying to bring in, then take out, then bring in, take out. I think he's fully healthy. I like Baker Mayfield as the quarterback there instead of Sam Darnold. You know, he's a passing quarterback, one of the few that are out there now. So, yeah, I have full faith in CMC. I mean, I think he has a good chance to repeat his 1,000-yard rushing and receiving again.
Nice.
He's my overall number 1 pick everywhere I could get him at the 101.
He was mine as well. I have him luckily in a few, Scott Fish Bowl, Raz Bowl, to name a few. And I'm intrigued by that. I'm intrigued by DJ Moore having a quarterback for the first time, Keith. How high are you on DJ Moore, not only just this week, but going forward?
I mean, I like him about where his ADP was. I don't believe in this Panthers team. I'm shocked of all the hype. They're going to be bad. People that think they're going to be good, you're wrong. You will see. They're like the Falcons. They're going to win maybe 5, 6, 7 games. I mean, I guess that could help maybe, Moore's value, because maybe they're down. He gets some more opportunities. I do hope his touchdowns go up, because if not, then it's a Moore problem and not a QB. Because I know a lot of people have had, he gets over like 1,200 yards every year, and it's like 3 touchdowns. So I hope that does go up. But I worry about the Panthers' line's not great. And I don't think their defense is as good as, some people do. They got some good pass rushers up front, but the secondary was really bad for spots last year, at least against good passing teams. I'm not as high on him as everybody else. But I think Moore's right around his ADP is about perfect.
He'll see volume. I think that's the thing that that there's no one else really that's gonna compete with him. Volume. Well, obviously CMC coming back is gonna see a decent number of targets, but other wide receivers, I don't think we can really worry about any of this.
Yeah, I probably asked the wrong person if I wanted someone to back up my Carolina hype, because one of the guys, Hollywood Titan, who's part of our Shoot the Gap podcast and part of Fantasy and Frames, him and I both had Carolina potentially creeping into the playoffs last year, and then through the first couple of weeks with Sam Darnold running for 25 touchdowns, we're like, we might be onto something. I'm still a believer this year. I know that's going to bite me, but it is. I think the touchdowns do go up. Obviously, this is hearkening to a wide receiver that you're close to, Keith. It was Julio. Was his the end zone, scared of the end zone. I don't know what it is. Yeah, they have some issues across everything, but they've addressed a lot defensively. Matt Ioannidis in the middle. I think between J.C. Horn and C.J. Henderson, and then obviously we'll see what we get out of Jeremy Chin and Xavier Woods. But I don't want to go too much and more into that. I think that CMC is clearly there. Where you got DJ Moore, you're getting 12 to 1,400 yards receiving and 4 touchdowns, and that's good for where he's at.
Yeah, he gets 8 though. It's a great pick. You're
a top 6 receiver in the league. With Cleveland, we know the offensive line injuries are noticeable. I think it's going to, like we said, the run heavy approach. I think we pretty much know that. Chubb is a great play this week. Hunt, when we were talking earlier with both players on the same team, probably not. But even Kareem Hunt as a flex play, I'm cool with that.
Don't doubt the brisket, man. Like, Jacoby Brissett is not bad. Yeah, you got to remember, he was the starter in Indianapolis. Look, am I saying he's a stud? Absolutely not. But I mean, look, for example, I think Geno Smith hurts every single Seahawk. I still think Brissett is good enough to get Amari the ball, to get Kareem the ball out of the backfield. He's decent enough. He's serviceable.
The one thing that I worry is just, overall, that year you're talking about with Indy, he was barely at 60% completion, under 3,000 yards. But
who did he have to throw to?
That's exactly. I mean, I hate to say not much, because it was T.Y. Hilton, and that was about it. Zach Pascal.
T.Y. Hilton in the tail end of his career.
In the 10 games that he played too. Yeah. So no doubt we got it. Here's a question. Harkening as good as Jacoby Brissett option, luckily it doesn't include. Does Mario want to start Dak or Aaron Rodgers? We'll just each one take a pick.
I think we're gonna see Rodgers fall off a cliff. Oh. He's always had a stud. You got to think about it. He's had who's the Jordy Nelson, who was an absolute...
Who made Jordy Nelson? Aaron Rodgers. He wasn't Jordy Nelson when he first got there.
He went from Jordy
Nelson.
Jordy Nelson to Devontae Adams. He's always
made
had
Devontae
a
Adams.
stud.
We will see.
Did he make him?
We will see that. Let's get it. So you're taking Dak, is what it sounds like.
Without a doubt.
Okay.
Rodgers.
Dak.
I would take Dak for this game, because I think against Tampa it's going to be higher scoring, but Aaron Rodgers is going to have a great year.
Okay. And Jonathan, you on Dak as well?
Yes. I was going to talk about the. I think Dak. I do worry a little bit about the Packers today, just because of the O-line issues. Lazard out as well. So
Dak's no different. He has both his starting tackles basically are gone.
True.
It's ugly. But I do want to get through the games, and I don't want to leave anything untouched. And I don't mean to cut anybody off and stay it short. I do apologize. IDP wise, I want to pay attention to JOK, see if he's a 3-down linebacker, and Jeremy Chin's alignment on that defense. 2 huge things that could play significant dividends going forward. Indianapolis at Houston Texans. Matty Ice. I know, Keith, you'll be watching that with bated breath. He has a solid.
That'd be good.
Okay, I believe so too. But just checking. I'm trying to test the water there.
I'm not nervous for another team, if that's what you're asking.
I know, but he has a solid offensive line. Over under 30% target share for Michael Pittman in this game. Each one over under Dave. 30% is a lot, but still.
I want to say under. we just don't know. We just don't know what it's going to look like with Matty Ice under center. So just to be safe, I'm going to say under.
Thanks, Mario. Appreciate you. Jonathan, over under 30%. It's a huge number.
Yeah, I think it'll be close, but maybe that is high, so maybe just under.
I probably shouldn't have gone 30, but I want to see someone say good. I want someone besides me to say over because he's going to be at 31%.
I'll say over. There
you go, Keith. All right. Then earlier, Jonathan, you should start Jesse Bates. He is definitely a lock over Minka. I retract my statement. I do want to see what Nyheim Hines' involvement with this offense will be. I know they want to get him more incorporated with this. I just don't know if they're going to be trailing for him to really have a significant impact. But let's say they are. That means Houston's going to be winning. Keith, is Dameon Pierce a 3-down back? I know you love him.
Yes. He can catch passes. He can run any route. I have questions about how good Houston's offense is just going to be as a whole.
Sure.
But Dameon Pierce absolutely can be a 3-down back. They didn't show a lot of that in the preseason, but he was a good pass catcher at Florida.
Yeah. Well,
dude, Davis Mills quietly crushed it last year.
Yeah.
No one really spoke about it. I mean, he did good. He gave a couple of teams. I know the Patriots game. They just beat the Texans. I mean, he was dropping absolute dimes to nobodies. I mean, other than Brandon Cooks. So
that's my question: can he support more than 100-yard passer in a game? Does he have the wherewithal to get 2? Yeah. I mean, so if it's not Brandon Cooks, does Nico Collins have? Can Nico Collins get close to 100 yards? Over under 70 yards for Nico.
This game?
Yeah.
I think over.
Okay, got an over, got an under. Jonathan, you're the tiebreaker.
I think under. I do like Nico Collins, but I personally, I think we need to see more before we can be confident in it.
I think it's going to be interesting to watch as this game does, because I think it's going to be Indy clearly. I personally, I think this is going to be the narrative to pay attention to, because I think this is the game that I believe Indy's front four and that linebacker, even without Shaq, I realize Bobby Okereke is a really good run stopper as well. And Nick Cross down in the line at the line of scrimmage. I believe that they slow Dameon Pierce in this Houston offense down. And I think that we see a mediocre game out of Pierce and people overreact. Because I agree with you, Keith. I think that he has been given the keys to be able to do all. I worry why they would keep Rex and those guys around and cut Marlon Mack if they wanted him to catch passes. But again, that's the narrative to pay attention to. If they get behind and they start throwing balls to Rex Burkhead and they take Dameon Pierce out, are you overreacting or are you reacting at all, Keith?
You're talking about to week 1?
In week 1, yeah.
I mean, it depends how much they're down. If you're talking about 2 touchdowns, no. I mean, it's,
yeah.
Why a losing battle. But I think the Texans actually are going to make this game closer than people think.
Okay. I hope it's a good game. I want all the games to be great because I want to watch the red zone, just be head on a swivel. Brian talked about Nico, so he's on board. He says Nico for 150 yards and 3 touchdowns. Ooh. He doesn't, but I just
put him in my DK line.
I know. Here, you guys can start one. This is a tough one, Bobby. Welcome, by the way. Full point PPR makes me lean a little bit maybe towards Gibson, but Gibson or Chubb? Do you go with safety of Chubb without that PPR? Or what do we think Antonio Gibson's going to do? Is it JD McKissick who sees the receiving work? Do they not trust Antonio Gibson? Is that why all this Brian Robinson talk? Or do they actually just say, screw it here? You already are top, you've been an RB1 basically for the past 2 years. Here's the keys again. Somebody, Jonathan, you start.
I've loved Antonio Gibson for the last couple of years. He's often on the majority of my fantasy teams. I can't trust him anymore because everything that Washington has been saying through their words and their actions has been telling us they don't want him to be the guy. Mm-hmm. So I would go Chubb here. I think we kind of said it before that it's probably going to be quite a run-heavy game there. So even despite it being PPR, I still think McKissick is going to see more work than any of us want, because that's kind of how it's been for the last couple of years, and we've had no indications that that's going to change. Yeah.
I think it's Chubb as well. It's safety. Feels like you know what you're getting. It's kind of a security blanket to be comfortable. If you're not, I mean, you can shoot for upside if you want. But would anybody pick Antonio Gibson? If not,
would.
You would.
Yes,
Okay.
I just don't like anybody in the Panthers-Browns game. I really think it's going to be an ugly, low-scoring game, and I think Jacksonville's offense is good, meaning Gibson's going to catch more passes. And I mean, let's be honest, Jacksonville gave up a ton of points to running backs last year. Who knows if they solved that, but they were 21st on DraftKings points against the running backs. And McKissick's not going to run a lot. I mean, he, even last year when he played a good bit, he didn't. So Gibson's going to get to run, and I don't think he's going to be completely void of the. And I hope Chubb catches some passes this year. As a Georgia fan, it drives me crazy. They don't throw him the freaking ball. Chubb can catch passes, and for whatever reason, they don't really do it.
So there is a prop bet on Nick Chubb with an over/under of receiving yards at 7.5 yards. That's what they think his receiving
Isn't that crazy?
yards.
I would take the under.
And it seemed so easy, but yet he had less than 7.5 6 games last year.
It's unbelievable.
It is. And so yeah, I think so you're the tiebreaker, Dave. Just a quick answer. I don't know if we have time to go in too much detail. Are you taking Chubb or Antonio Gibson?
It's Chubb. It's not even close. This guy ran 228 rushing attempts last year. He got over 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns. He's especially, with uncertainty with the brisket. I think he's going to rely on pounding the rock. I mean, I think the guy's good for 100 yards and a tutty today.
There you go. There you go. Answer is Nick Chubb. I don't think Antonio Gibson is a bad play. So the nice thing is going forward, if you have both of them, you're in a good spot to see, because if Gibson,
I would much rather have Chubb going forward. This week, I would rather have Gibson.
Yeah, but still, he gets the benefit of having for more than one week, or maybe not. And he trades one of them after this,
and I bet he got Gibson for nothing, which is great.
Pretty much, exactly. Yeah. For your DFS place, doesn't shock me. Dameon Pierce at 4,800, Michael Pittman at 5,500. Both are smash plays for me. They're both in my lineups for the most part. Dameon Pierce rotates in and out, just because my concern, like I said, with the whole pass catching them getting down, but that's just my little quirkiness. I do want to pay attention to Kwity Paye's pressure rate this week, because it's a good matchup against Houston, but there's not a ton of without Shaq, there's a lot of ancillary moves that happens there. Like I said, Nick Cross, Jalen Petrie, IDP wise for Houston could be a smash play. I wish they did IDP DFS. I would probably roster Jalen Petrie against a heavy run dosage of Jonathan Taylor. We didn't talk about Jonathan Taylor. We don't need to. He's a beast. New Orleans and Atlanta. There's an entire new regime.
Undefeated Atlanta Falcons now.
The undefeated Atlanta Falcons against the undefeated New Orleans Saints, both tied for first in the NFC South. Both lead the league in 0 yards allowed. And Jameis Winston and Jameis Winston has yet to throw an interception. Does that stay true through the rest of week 1, Jonathan?
Jameis is such a tricky one to work out, because obviously kind of, 2-3 years ago you had the 30 season, yes. And then last year it was like the games that he did play, it was pretty much a polar opposite. Most of the games that he played, he was under 30 passing attempts. I think his last 2, I think he was over 30 passing attempts. So, but then he didn't have the weapons that he did now. So my guess is that we see an uptick from what it was last year, just because the weapons around him are better. And, Michael Thomas should be playing today. Obviously, Olave there. So, he's going to be a fascinating one to watch and see kind of how he's playing a year after his injury.
Don't forget the 30-30 year. He threw for over 5,200 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, the dude can still throw the ball. Can he throw a pick? Absolutely, but
very well.
Not afraid to sling the rock, man.
Hey,
which is why last year was so strange. It was just kind of a polar opposite as to what we'd seen previously.
Well, now that we don't have to worry about Sean Payton's love for Taysom Hill, we don't have to incorporate that tragedy into why they would ever start him over Jameis. In my opinion, he had LASIK surgery. Now he can see well. Maybe that was a problem. The jerseys just all blended together, and he wasn't throwing interceptions. It was a completion as far as he was concerned, just to the wrong team. I do want to pay attention to Michael Thomas this week. Of course, that's going to be, if there's 7 players in the NFL, he might be one of the top 7 that people are going to definitely focus on. That if he has a huge week, they hit pay dirt as far as they're concerned. Go, in terms of what the upside brings. How is Michael Thomas going to respond? New quarterback, new scheme. Is the ankle still good? He already had a hamstring problem. I just want to pay attention there. Anybody super, super high on Michael Thomas?
No. I'm all about Olave, to be honest. I think the guy has the skill to take over as the one. I mean, when was the last time we saw Michael Thomas be Michael Thomas? That was, 2-3 years ago? It's a long time, man.
He quit on his team, right?
I mean, really, yeah. And let's be, you mentioned Chris Olave. The Saints traded with Washington to move up to the number 11 pick to get Chris Olave. So they send over the 16, the 98, and the 120 to go at wide receiver. That is, honestly, it's really unheard of, because with so many other areas of concerns that they had to address with cap issues and everything else, they go for a wide receiver. That probably does say a lot to me about Michael Thomas's, is where they thought he was at with his progression and what they think of Chris Olave. Chris Olave, I think, is going to surprise a lot of people. I think Jarvis Landry could surprise a lot of people and be a target monster in some regards. I'm not going to discredit and take anything away from Jameis. Jameis could very easily be that QB2 that turns into a QB1 as the season progresses, that we have just buried to begin. So I'm intrigued to watch that. Keith, I'm going to give you the floor. A couple quick questions I want you to answer here. Number one, what's your outlook for Marcus Mariota this week? Do you think he uses his legs? Do you think it's just going to be his legs because he's running for his life to get away from Marcus Davenport, Cameron Jordan, etc.?
I hope the line's better, but I'm not optimistic about it. I think he's going to have to run a lot for his life. But the one thing I just want to remind everyone is Arthur Smith is a great play caller. He showed in the preseason he was getting the ball out of both quarterbacks' hands really quickly. We have some very talented guys around. I expect them to try to do that. The difficulty against the Saints is I don't think they're going to be able to actually run the ball, which is going to put them in some bad situations. But I actually don't – like, Mariota impressed me in the preseason. I got to admit, he looked great. And I'm somebody that's rooting for Desmond Ridder to start, as many games as possible just so we can know exactly what we have. But I think it's going to be a while.
Nice. And I mean, I don't think anybody doubts that Kyle Pitts is going to get targeted a ton. I think we have to assume that. Question I have for you, Jonathan, is how many of those will be red zone targets? And is that the concern with Michael Pitts this week? Kyle Pitts this week.
I mean, given the size of him, you would think that he is going to – he should score a lot more. I think he only scored one last year.
Yeah, one last year.
Which was actually – it was in London. I saw it.
Yeah, he has not scored in the States. That's right.
So, yeah, I mean, I can't wait to watch him this year. Beyond fantasy, just to see how he can progress. Yeah. And he should score a lot more touchdowns. He should be either the number one or number two option.
I'm going to put you on the clock this week, in a couple hours. Will he have more or less than 2 red zone targets?
I'll say more. Whether he scores or not, I'm not sure. I do worry about the Falcons today. Sorry, Keith. Just because of how good that Saints defense I think will be. I do worry about Drake London today. I mean, London is someone that I took in a lot of my leagues. I think he's going to have a great year. I think he's going to see a lot of targets, but both today I'm just a little bit worried about.
Yep. He had 15 red zone targets last year, only 5 receptions of those 15. That one culminated in a touchdown. Was someone going to say something real quick?
Don't forget that Mariota made Jonnu Smith a pretty decent tight end, man. So
and Delaney Walker.
Yep. And Delaney Walker as well. So he loves to throw the tight end. I'm expecting that to continue. So, I think Pitts, I think he's going to end the season with where you drafted him, probably as the number 3 tight end.
I think everybody wants to see that. So here's a question. Mandela asks, Michael Thomas or Courtland Sutton? My easy answer for me is Courtland Sutton.
Oh, yeah.
I'm as big a Courtland Sutton fan. I believe I've I hope I haven't influenced so many people to take Sutton, because every time anybody asks draft questions or advice, Sutton has always been my go-to. He'll be your wide receiver.
51% of his air yards last year, Nate. That's how bad on his deep balls. 51% was all he converted. Russell Wilson's one of the best deep ball throwers in the league.
Absolutely.
It's a match made in heaven. I grabbed Sutton in every draft I could. I've got him in 2 DK lineups today. I'm with you. So we're going to go down together on that ship if something happens. But I think we're going to see 2019 Sutton. He's 2 years from his ACL surgery.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all systems go.
And you know that Russell Wilson is going to want to air the ball out as much as possible today.
Well, and that's so we'll actually let's get to that game here shortly, because that's what I think we're all going to want to talk about. And I want to know from all of you guys too. As far as the defense side goes, I do want to see Marcus Davenport, how he performs. I'm very high on him. The usage of Peyton Turner at linebacker is going to be important. And on the Atlanta side, who steps up for the Atlanta Falcons linebacking core?
Do you like Anderson, Nate?
I do like Anderson. I don't know if he's going to get enough playing time. I think Walker sees significant snaps. I think that rotation could be intriguing to pay attention to, because we might get 4 more weeks worth of LB production, as much as I expect their defense to be on the field, personally speaking. Earlier, we mentioned Lamar and everything about that offense. Baltimore travels to New York. No Zach Wilson. Joe Flacco, revenge game narrative, of course. That's the big thing on everybody's mind, I'm sure.
I totally forgot about that. Totally forgot.
I thought that guy was dead.
We'll scratch him off then. That's a major league reference. The only person that's not thinking of the revenge game is Lamar Jackson, who's deciding if he wants to hire an agent and actually get paid. If he's looking for one, Lamar, I can happily take on the role. No offense to yourself, but I believe that you haven't got it done yet.
You'll take 3%, right, of that $250 million?
Dude, I'd take 1%. I would be the cheapest agent. I'll be the best. I'll quit my job. I'll answer phone calls for you.
I'll be your butler, dude.
Damn right.
If I was Lamar, I'd be hiring Christian Kirk's agent. That dude,
right? Yeah,
that dude's a miracle worker.
Yes, he should. Or maybe Sam Bradford's agent from back in the day. Got paid a ton, but we know Lamar's going to be running crazy. We know he's going to take advantage of this Jets defense. Keith, you alluded to it earlier. Susceptible at the tight end position. Mark Andrews should destroy. But I have a question about Mark Andrews owners, and I think that what we're going to see, Mark Andrews with Lamar last year was really good. Nobody's discrediting that. He had,
Preach, Nate. I know what you're about to say.
Weeks 1 through 12, the 100 targets, finished with 12.7 fantasy points per game, which was good for the tight end 2 overall. It's amazing. You draft him as your tight end 2, you get your tight end 2. That's perfect. Or with Tyler Huntley, weeks 13 to 18, nearly 18 points per game. That is not what we're expecting to see, but is that the expectations that people have of Mark Andrews this year? Is that final 5 games?
Yes. I had to bring that up to several people who were talking about all these numbers, and I go, no. I was like, subtract those last 5 games, and that's actually the Lamar to Andrews, which, again, it's great, but it's not out of this world, which people are counting the Huntley games, and it's like Huntley threw nothing but to Andrews. I mean, the target share was outrageous in those games. But, again, the other thing that concerns me is Lamar now has another good tight end and Likely, who they're going to play a lot, and Bateman runs a lot of the same type routes. They've basically gone all in, and I love what the Ravens have done is we're going to make what Lamar does well, and we're going to surround him with weapons that are going to run those kind of routes and go over the middle of the field. And I think it's brilliant, and it's going to help him, but it is going to hurt a little bit of Andrews' value if you have him too high, because I don't think he's going to get quite the amount of targets and receptions that maybe he has in years past.
Yeah, and I think that we've talked about this. We want to see how Rashad Bateman is incorporated. We think it's just going to be funneled to him and Andrews and pretty much nobody else. The run game is going to be interesting for Baltimore. For a team that's loved to run, J.K. Dobbins has been ruled out. Jonathan, are you actually contemplating Mike Davis this week? I know it's gross, but I mean, he burned me last year so many times in Atlanta because this was a can't miss product. Any running back that's got 65% of the touches has never finished outside of an RB2. And guess what? Congratulations. You got to be the first. Heard on UFC, you've never been knocked out until you've been knocked out. And he's never not done that until he's done that. And so, Jonathan, Mike Davis, if you had to play, would you put him in DFS lineup?
I mean, I'm not sure what the price is, but I would probably not. I was just checking the rankings to see kind of who he's around. I think I'd still probably play Naheem Hines, Melvin Gordon. You know, I don't trust it. I think if they're going to run, they're going to use Lamar Jackson. I don't trust someone like Mike Davis to be consistent. I think they'll probably air it out, actually probably a little more than we think, even though they'll be up. Just because I don't think he's been that good in the preseason. I think it'll probably be a selection of a number of running backs. But
I don't think they're going to be up to even, like, some people might question Kenyon Drake. But I'm like, I think that they will be ahead. And I think it's just going to be Lamar. I think Lamar's going to crush them. All right, Dave, Mike Davis or Michael Carter, if you had to choose one of those two.
I would probably go Davis. I mean, we're really diving through the dumpster right now.
There we go. That's all I wanted. I wanted to ask a question that got Mike Davis as an answer. Now
he is 4,400 on DraftKings, which makes him an interesting play, honestly.
Tell me the last Jets running back that did half decent, other than maybe Matt Forte. Chris Ivory. We're
Curtis Martin.
Yeah,
I get. I mean, we're talking a long time ago. In the last 5, Chris Ivory was probably the best Jets running back, and he was a one-year wonder. You know.
We gave away a Lev Bell Jets autographed jersey at the Expo this year. Dave, you did not win that. I know you were pining for that, unfortunately.
It's going to go right on the wall there.
It was going to be right behind you. It would have been right over here with mine. All right, Jonathan, Juju or Thielen, full point PPR. That's a tough one. Oh, man.
That's Juju for me. It's Juju.
Okay,
I mean,
got one Juju.
You got the number one receiver, being thrown the ball by, probably top 3 quarterback in the league. I mean, he's going to get the opportunity. He's definitely going to get the targets, and I'd rather trust Juju rather than Thielen, who's the number 2/number 3, receiver on his own team.
I think.
Go ahead, John.
Sorry, I was going to say, I think I would probably go Juju there. I think we're going to see that's going to be a higher scoring game than the Green Bay Vikings game. I mean, Green Bay has I know I'm biased, but it has a really good secondary. They've got Jair Alexander back this year. They brought Russell Douglas back as well. So I just feel as though that's going to be low scoring, and I think, yeah. So I would probably go Juju there.
If there's going to be one little added thing that it's hard to replicate, 15 targets in the red zone, 13 catches, 105 yards, and 9 touchdowns. That's Adam Thielen last year in the red zone. Don't expect that to do the same again. But then again, you know what? We've been saying that about
24 touchdowns in his last 28 games. Give me Adam Thielen. He's the most underrated wide receiver in football. He was the 14th receiver in fantasy last year. Juju Smith wasn't even playing. I'll take Thielen week 1, see what Juju does, and then maybe adjust after. But I think Thielen has a much higher floor than Juju, which week 1, that's usually what I'm going for.
Well, I wish that is it's a tough option to have.
Oh, I know it is. But
I don't blame. Hey, no, you guys all make great arguments. I hope again, at the end of the day, person's just using some information and hope they make the right decision. I hope that the Ravens make the right decision and they use Kyle Hamilton on defense in the proper way. I really want to watch his usage. I think that could be pivotal because right now his hype is suppressed to an almost whisper, which is incredible for one of the.
I'm starting him today in the IDP league for us.
That is
against me.
Well, yeah, that's I'll be intrigued to see how that works. I also want to see, I think the narrative, and we could probably spend the next 20 minutes talking about it, but we're going to watch Breece Hall usage. We could talk and talk and talk. The fact of the matter is this, how much he gets incorporated in week 1 is probably not a true outlier for how he's going to be used for the rest of the season. I think we all agree, talent-wise, he's incredible. One of the most talented running backs into the league. Week 1, with all the talk, it's against Baltimore. Temper expectations. Don't freak out at the end of week 1. Don't worry when he has, 9 carries for 35 yards, 4 catches for 17 yards. That's even so low, but I'm using that for emphasis. It won't be that bad. You've talked earlier, Keith, that Isaiah Likely at 2,500, such a great play for a touchdown opportunity. You have so much money to spend elsewhere. You could have a stack lineup, and you're not investing. The difference is the difference in 2,500 between wide receiver 1 that you could start and having to dumpster dive. Even if he got 0, you're probably going to outscore your other receivers by that amount per
preseason,
dollar
12
spent.
targets, 12 catches, 144 yards, and a touchdown. And reports saying he's going to be the third receiving option in this offense. I doubt he'd be shut up. I think at a minimum he'll have 4 or 5 points, which are 2,500. That's great. If he scores 10 to 15, you're in really good shape.
And
it seems like he's going to be used more as a receiver than a sort of traditional tight end. So yeah.
I hope he becomes a star because the number of puns we can do with the last name Likely through the roof, guys.
Correct. And let's be honest. Do you want Mike Davis toting the rock in the red zone for you to get in the ends? No, he's just going to let Lamar run.
I learned that last year.
Exactly. We learn a lot of things. I also want to watch Garrett Wilson's involvement with this offense. It's hard to say without Zach Wilson, but Joe Flacco has supported wide receivers in the past. I'm not quite getting on that bandwagon yet. But
Corey Davis was great in the games Flacco started last year.
That's what I was going to say. Is Corey Davis the play as if you had to pick one? Maybe so. I don't know if I want to go too heavy in receivers for the Jets against this Baltimore secondary and this Baltimore defense as a whole. Jacksonville and Washington. Jorge's not here to defend his commander, so we can beat up on him as much as we want, but it pretty much does it itself. It's Carson Wentz era begins. All right, how long until Sam Howell takes over? I say week 8.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I think it's closer to the end of the year, like week 13, 14.
Is Heineke the number 2? Is Heineke the number 2 behind Washington?
Yes, Heineke could be the number 2, but my guess is if you're going to go all out, you're going to bypass Heineke and go with the person who in the preseason looked the part. But you're right. But Tyler Heineke also was asked before the season even started. They go, "What's the chance you start?" And he goes, "Like 0%." He's like, "They got to come in." I mean, he even said those words. Might not be verbatim, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Jorge makes a good point. Still sitting in the airport waiting. Has nothing better to do than talk about no Marcus Peters today. Wonder if it's Corey Davis or Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore's getting the majority of the hub as far as
I love Moore.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. The Jets shockingly don't have like the worst offense. They just don't. They have pieces.
They just don't have a quarterback.
They need Wilson to be what some people said he could be.
Correct. And I hear a lot of people are really hyped. I think their offensive line is going to be a little concern.
Right.
I mean, they're missing significant pieces across the offensive line. Flacco's going to be in some dire straits. But yeah, I think that most likely Peters is lined up against Corey Davis. So I would probably say Elijah Moore against Marlon Humphrey. Again, we'll see how they deploy Kyle Hamilton in that defense and what they do. All these narratives, great to pay attention to back on that game. But Jacksonville, Washington, we talked earlier about Antonio Gibson's workload. We want to know what that's going to look like. I want to know what James Robinson's workload is going to look like, Jonathan.
Yeah, it's such a tricky one because he's supposedly back to kind of, back to full strength. I think he was a full participant in practice this week. But yeah, I think Etienne should see the majority of the work. He should, and particularly in the sort of the high value touches, you would think would be Etienne. And I suppose that's probably what we should be focusing on. Etienne should see the passing down work, for example. And that, yeah. But it's one of those things where, as you said at the start of the show, it's one of those things that we need to look at week 1 so that then we can make decisions going forward.
It really will. I mean, because if they trust James Robinson in week 1, coming off that Achilles and already getting into a situation in a can-win game too. I mean, I think that this is one of the games that they preseason looked at and went, all right, there's a win for us potentially. That I don't think they lean James Robinson. I wouldn't be shocked if he's not even really utilized more than 3 or 4 times. In all fairness, I think that they want to, but time will tell. They'll show that. Does anybody disagree? Does anybody think James Robinson could? Because I know Jorge loves James Robinson. So someone, Dave,
yeah, me too.
You can suck up a little. Go ahead.
We're gonna see. I think what happened with Cam Akers on Thursday night. They know what they have in James Robinson. I get it. He tore his Achilles. He's coming back, but when the dude's on the field, he delivers. He's a good goal line back. He gets good yards per carry. He can catch the ball. Is Travis Etienne going to get used? Absolutely, but I think sparingly. I think it's primarily Robinson's backfield with Etienne sprinkled in.
All right. A couple news notes that are coming out right now. Drake London is officially active. Micah Thomas is as well. Tyler Algier is not.
Yes.
He's inactive today.
Kittle out.
Wow.
That's
Is that an
Kittle?
injury?
Yeah.
So that means Patterson probably is a decent play today
Yeah.
in daily fantasy and obviously your leagues.
Sure. I mean, I am the biggest anti-Cordell Patterson person, but even I can understand he's being drafted as the running back like 36. There's value in just the touches that he's going to have. So let's see. How else can I get Dave to suck up to Jorge? Hey, pick Jahan Dotson or Curtis Samuel. That'll be an interesting thing. It's not much more of a narrative thing, is to see if Ron Rivera truly utilizes Curtis Samuel like he wants to. I've heard a lot of comparisons to Curtis Samuel, to Deebo Samuel, not because just by name, but because of potential usage, not to the same degree.
Okay. I got you.
Yes, but because they
Wait.
think I know exactly,
What?
but because they think they'll give him the ball in the backfield and let him try to do stuff with it that he hasn't been able to do since his days in Carolina. But you never know. Again, it's something that at the end of the day, if you see Curtis Samuel get 2 or 3 rushing attempts and a few receptions, maybe he's a person that's on the waiver wire that we might be talking.
Yeah, his value should definitely go up. For
right?
Sure.
It's something to pay attention.
Guaranteed touches are guaranteed touches.
Correct. And as well as the Jags wide receiver, we think it's, Christian Kirk. If someone else steps up, if he does look Zay Jones's direction a lot, maybe that's someone.
Is going to get it.
I agree with you 100%. That's
Washington
your
gave up
DFS play.
5.5 receptions to running backs last year and a league worst 9 touchdowns. Etienne is one of my favorite plays this week. And I think he's going to be the guy that actually moves the chains a lot for Jacksonville on 3rd down this year.
Perfect.
I mean, this is kind of what he was known for in
Right.
college as well. wasn't it?
85 receptions his last 2 years in college with Lawrence.
Yeah, he's a stud. I'm excited to watch him too.
He's a beast.
I'm excited to watch Trayvon Walker's alignment on this defensive line for Jacksonville. Could be sneaky. Person who I was down on going in. He's really proven a lot in preseason. He's been moving interior on run plays.
Dude, he's a beast.
Outside defensive edge, outside linebacker. Devin Lloyd usage I want to pay attention to. And then Montez Sweat with no Chase Young is in line for a lot of attention, but I want to see how that translates into pressures. I also want to talk and discuss a little bit about Trophy Smack. And don't forget to use promo code Fantasy and Frames. I'm going to speak slower so I can pull up this overlay here. Jorge is beautifully built this up. And just remember, as I mentioned, use promo code Fantasy in Frames. When you buy a trophy or belt, you get a free Stunna ring. Free, as I mentioned. And if you don't know what this looks like, this is a Trophy Smack ring. Beautiful. Bling, bling. I didn't have to win to get this ring. All I had to do was buy a trophy, use promo code Fantasy in Frames, get the trophy, get the ring. Hell, buy a trophy for yourself, even if you don't win the league.
I was going to say, I'm not going to win a league, but maybe I'll just buy a trophy.
Just buy
myself.
it. Look at the belt back there. That's not even my belt. I just got it. I said, screw it. No one's going to ask questions. I'm just going to put a whole display behind me of like 40 different badass trophies, and people will just assume I won.
It'll make up for my childhood, Nate.
Exactly. I have all my young ones there. Let's move on to Green Bay, Minnesota. We've talked a lot about some pieces of this game. We know it's a battle for the NFC North. I think that the usage of Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon is going to be even inflated with the tackle, situation that we have going on there. We've kind of touched on that. That's a big one to pay attention to. There's, here's a question before I get going anymore, because I got a please help. Please help. This sounds serious. 911 on your pager. If you guys remember having pagers, Jonathan, you don't. Dave, you do. We used to get the page that said 911 that meant call immediately. You went to
A
the payphone. Thank you very much, Keith. This is the Old Man Hour, brought to you in part by Metamucil. Metamucil.
And you used to have to use your prepaid card that you buy.
Exactly. We have Devontae Smith or Kadarius Toney. Already has A.J. Brown. I think the safe floor with A.J. Brown means I want to go upside on Kadarius Toney, but I might stand by myself. What do you guys think?
I love it. Tony's one of my favorite, again, daily fantasy plays this week. The Titans were bad against the pass and receivers last year. They were 31st most points on DraftKings to wide receivers, and Tony proved he only had one game that he played 70% or more snaps. He's supposedly healthy coming in this. He had a 29-point game, obviously, against Dallas. He's got a lot of talent. And I don't see how he's not a focal point of the offense today. So I think Toney is a better play than Smith, only because I think the Eagles could be up, running, et cetera. For Giants might be down, throwing, and it's a better matchup.
Either one of you two guys lean Devontae Smith, or are we all in agreement it's Kadarius?
I think in a vacuum I would go Smith, but I think if you've got AJ Brown, I think Keith's points speak for themselves.
Nice. Well, there you go, Darius. Let's hope that it is all Kadarius Toney today, and thank you for listening, watching, and commenting. Please be part of the family from going forward, man. So, Green Bay Packers. Obviously, we said Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon. Outside of that, who is Aaron Rodgers going to target? Because we know there's no Allen Lazard. If you had to choose one, Dave, who are you choosing? I mean, you can take a pick. You got a whole bunch of old people. We talk about the pager 911. Is Aaron Rodgers gonna hit up Randall Cobb? Is he gonna send
is it 2014?
It could be carrier pigeon to Sammy Watkins.
See, Randall Cobb in 2014 was actually a top, I want to say 5 or 6 receiver, believe it or not.
Randall Cobb's a stud.
I don't know. I really don't. I mean, maybe it's Tunyon. It's too hard to tell. I think Rodgers fails miserably this year without Adams. I think Adams made Rodgers absolute beast. So I'm not touching anyone in Green Bay, to be honest.
So speaking of 2014, Devontae Adams in that year in 16 games had 66 targets, 38 catches, 446 and 3. Randall Cobb, as you mentioned, had 127 targets, 91 catches, 1287 and 12. In addition to that was with 3 fumbles, and he still almost outscored Jordy Nelson in that same year. Is someone else? All right. So you went with who? You say did you even give me an answer?
Tunyon. I think Tunyon will get the targets.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. How about you, Jonathan? You're the Green Bay guy. This is important.
Right. You're gonna have to stop me. Just sort of start waving if I start speaking too much, because I don't think on a weekly basis we're really going to be able to predict which player it is week one. I think it's going to be spread around. I think the thing that Matt LaFleur has done really well since he got there is when there have been issues either with the line or with Adams out, he has looked to kind of change the game plan around it, so you can never really predict that he's going to be one guy. Sometimes it was Lazard, sometimes it was MVS, but I think the guy that you're going to be able to trust week on week is going to be Aaron Jones. I think he's going to be the guy who will see consistent targets. So in terms of the wide receivers, I think it's going to be really hard to say this week it's going to be Christian Watson, this week it's going to be Watkins, whatever. I don't think we're really going to be able to do it until we're further down the season and we can start to see patterns. It's a cop-out answer, but I think it's Aaron Jones.
That's not a cop-out answer, because I think there's a lot of people I've talked to that have Aaron Jones leading that team in targets and potentially receptions, which is a testament, similar, unfortunately, to the Chiefs, in that if they say they don't know if they have a wide receiver one each given week, it's never a negative for a team to spread the ball around evenly. That's actually probably the best thing that can happen, is to have an offense that runs so smoothly you can move the chains passing to different people. Question is will that be the result for the Packers, is moving the chains if he can't trust Romeo Doubs or Christian Watson, and he relies on the old heads like us. And
actually, because one of the issues that Rodgers did have at times was that he would key into Adams, and that even if there were other players that were potentially more open, he would throw to Adams because of the trust.
Correct.
And so will we see him kind of work more within the offense? It's going to be really interesting. But the one guy that I wouldn't play him, but one guy I'm really interested to see how he progresses is Christian Watson, just because, you know, they traded up to get him. He hasn't seen a lot of work in preseason, but, you know, he's a big body. He's really quick, really athletic. So he's one guy that I'm really interested to see how he does over the first couple of weeks.
Perfect. You got your complimentary pieces in. I wanted to do that. My wife has been watching BBC World News every single day. Condolences with the loss of the Queen. That was such a huge thing. As my wife has said, she doesn't understand my lack of like just excitement or sadness over the thing. And she's like, you realize you'll probably never see another Queen in the history of your life. And I was like, yeah. And I'm so ignorant when it comes to that, but I know my wife would want me to send well wishes to you and to everybody over there. She wishes she could be there, and I wish that I could take her.
You
but
know,
will
it's
in
wild,
2
right?
years.
So obviously in the UK, but also Australia, New Zealand, every Commonwealth country mainly has the Queen on their currency. And I'm fairly certain the law states that you've got to have whoever is currently reigning. So I think by law, they're going to have to change
all the money over to.
I think what will probably happen is that you can still use them, but from now on they'll just.
From now on, it's going to have King.
Yeah,
Charles.
it'll have Charles. Yeah, but I mean,
So I should invest and buy some currency just to hold on to because it's the last.
It'll probably be worth something one day if you keep hold of it. Yeah, I'm sure. But it's all a little bit mad because I mean, obviously, you know, it hasn't happened in my lifetime, but it also hasn't like nothing's changed in my parents' lifetime.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, you know, she's on stamps, she's on all of our money, so it's a very, very strange situation.
That is. What's not strange is our expectation for J.K. Dobbins to be inactive. He is inactive. Wheels up on Mike Davis. You heard it from Dave first. He loves Mike Davis. I'm just kidding. That's gross.
I'll be one.
Exactly.
Mike Davis, Jonathan Taylor.
I do want to say that I'm interested to see how Kevin O'Connell runs the offense here. If it really truly is as pass happy as we anticipated, if that's the case, does it just mean that everybody can feast? Is it, Adam Thielen in the red zone we talked about? Irv Smith is 100% healthy. I don't know if I trust that quite yet. Obviously, Justin Jefferson. Dalvin Cook is the intriguing one that I don't know. Oh, sorry. I go on attention. I didn't even answer this question. Mandela, Robert Tonyan or Isaiah Likely? Man, he waited. Or maybe you have Kittle, and this is a pivot. But let's assume, Keith, you're the Likely guy. Are you taking Likely over Robert Tonyan?
Absolutely. And if you don't have Likely on your roster, if it's free, pick him up. Likely is going to be a stud, and he's a passing option. I'm telling you, I love him. I've got him in every league. I think he's going to be one of those breakout guys that you didn't have to draft. Tonyan, if it's a PPR league, I can understand going that way just because he'll probably get more targets this week, but I'll love Likely this weekend moving forward.
Gotcha. And like we said, Kittle is officially inactive. Trey Sermon is out. Oh no, the Trey Sermon Philadelphia experience isn't off to a great start yet. I was going to pull up our league, Keith. Does that mean you're starting Isaiah Likely in our Fantasy and Frame staff league?
Did I have him in there?
I don't know. You said you have him pretty much everywhere. This gives you chance.
Let's have a look.
Let's have a look.
Can I pick him up right now?
Yes, please. That would be fantastic. You guys are the heck you guys at? Here you are. Let's see. This is
okay. I'm sorry. That is the one league I do not have him.
Pick him up and start him against him.
Yeah, do it.
Wait, who you have, Jonathan?
Wait, are you telling me to do it?
Yeah, Zach Ertz is banged up. He's questionable.
Drop her.
Yeah, so I've got I've got David and Njoku as my backup.
You've been listening to Tyler too much.
Or you would have Gronk if you listen to Dave too much. Dave still probably has Gurley, Gronk, and Cam Newton in a lineup. You could probably take advantage of that.
Starting lineup. Yeah.
Of course, your starting lineup. There's no other lineups. You don't keep a bench. You just keep the bench open because you have that much faith in your starters.
All right, there you go. I just picked him up for you.
Oh my God, you actually done it. Nice.
And now you have to start him over Hawkinson.
Absolutely not. 32nd ranked defense versus tight ends last year. I like Likely, but not more than Hawkinson.
Boy, look at that. He's telling everybody, I don't know. It's a lot of put your money where your mouth is, but that's okay. Mandela, you heard it here. Isaiah Likely, pick him up. You already have him picked up. Never mind. But moving forward, Kevin O'Connell offense, pass heavy. Don't think it has an. I think that it could be. They very easily could lean on Dalvin Cook any given week that he's just exploding, and he's involved in the passing game too. I do want to see that. That's one of the narratives that was talked about in the preseason is him moving out, playing out wide in the slot at a receiver. I don't know if I believe he's going to do that because they've got three capable receivers and a tight end, but we'll see. Just that's the area I would say. Let's see how
I was just going to say the Packers have been much better against the pass than the run in the last couple of years. Obviously, they've made a couple of additions, defensive tackle, linebacker this offseason. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see.
I want to see on the Packers on the defensive side. I want to see how much Quay Walker. So the Packers have been notoriously one linebacker heavy. They don't
normally not a very good one.
Normally not, but having Devondre Campbell has been huge, and then they bring in Quay Walker, an amazing pick. But I want to see just how much he's utilized. I think they both have two defensive ends to pay attention to. I think Donnell Hunter is going to have a return to form. They split more to that 3-4 defense. He's going to be playing kind of standing up on the outside instead of his hands in the dirt. I want to see that acclimation to that new line. I think it's just going to be beneficial to him overall. And Rashawn Gary is just a beast. I think he's finally going to be on the tips of everyone's tongue this year going forward.
I can't wait to watch Gary this year.
I can't either. And then Lewis Seen is safety for Minnesota, playing alongside Harrison Smith, another rookie safety that we're talking about. I'm intrigued to see how he gets brought into the defense. The Giants and the Tennessee Titans. Is Brian Dable to the rescue in New York? Is that that's kind of a yes or no?
I believe it. Yes.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm actually somebody that thinks the Giants are the surprise team from the NFC that sneaks into the playoffs.
Yeah,
okay.
Me too.
All right, sure. I like that. So then that means probably most likely I think we all would agree, except Jonathan. Saquon. Will Saquon finish the season healthy? Will he finish, if healthy, as a top 5 running back? Jonathan, I'll give you that one.
Yes.
If he's healthy, yes. I mean, injury you can't predict, but
right.
Saquon has been one of my favorite picks in fantasy this year. Just any time that I'm in that is, often kind of second round, is and you don't really get a guy with that much upside there normally. No. So yeah, I've taken Saquon everywhere I could.
Yeah, he is definitely one of my favorites. You've made a fan out of Ken Sonnenberg. He's just going to tune in every week to hear us talk about the Giants. And then on that note, let's just pass up the Giants. No, I'm joking, Ken. We talked about Kadarius Toney being the receiver we think will step up this week. What do we think? I mean, I think the question on everybody's minds, Treylon Burks' usage with the Tennessee Titans in addition to Robert Woods. Keith, what do you think? I know Treylon Burks is very polarizing going into the draft. Actually, as soon as the draft was over, because of the trade of A.J. Brown, everybody kind of assumed that means they want him to jump into an A.J. Brown type role. Do you think that Burks actually sees the field on, I don't know, significant snaps this week, or are we just going to have to wait and see?
I hope so. But to be honest, I'm more interested to see what Wan'Dale Robinson does and how the Giants use him, because to draft him where they did, they obviously had a plan for him. I mean, because otherwise you don't take a guy that was projected almost a full round later. And from everything that my co-host of the Daily Fix told me, who is a Giants fan, they're planning on using him run game, slot, everywhere. And I'll tell you, as an SEC fan, he's a very athletic, fast guy. And Daboll from Buffalo has experience,
absolutely
using those kind of guys.
There's no doubt that there's, I'd say, a concern at the wide receiver position with some of the veterans. So it wouldn't shock me at all to see second-year Toney and rookie Wan'Dale Robinson step up and make that significant move within the offense. And
I'm just down on the Titans. I think that they're in for a bad year. I worry about Henry. He hit that number of total touches. It's like 400, right? And once you get there, it's rough. He had the injury last year, and he was already yards per carry before the injury, despite the amazing numbers he was putting up. kind of moving back towards the middle of the pack. And I'm not a big Tannehill fan. I don't like their wide receivers. Just not doing it. And it's like the AJ Brown trade just didn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, y'all were a contender the last 2-3 years, and you're going to get rid of the guy that had, at least the last 2 years, as much reason for it as anybody. I didn't get it at all.
No, me either. But that's one of the things. I am intrigued to watch Derrick Henry's workload. Something tells me that they're not going to shy away from giving him the ball 25 plus times, even in week 1. But for big man, those are small bones in the foot that can cause you an entire year's worth of missing. On the defensive side, guys, the Giants are going to be without a couple big playmakers. Azeez Ojulari and Kayvon Thibodeau both are inactive this week. I shouldn't say inactive. Both are doubtful. I haven't seen if they're actually inactive or not. I believe they probably will be. Ken will tell us here in a little bit. The question then with Tennessee for week 1 is, if you're not big on Tannehill, like maybe a lot of people would, is Malik Willis stash worthy? As Ken asks. I mean, if you have the roster space, yes.
Sure. Yeah, we saw how much he could run, just in the preseason games. And for me, a backup quarterback that runs is the perfect guy, because then you can plug them in whenever and feel pretty confident that their floor is going to be good.
Exactly. But
he's a guy that I would look to get in Dynasty as well, because his value at the moment is going to be really low because he's not starting. And obviously everyone now is in the mode of, I want to win. I'm playing week to week, so you could probably pick him up fairly cheaply.
Yeah, I think so too.
And the upside is obviously ridiculous.
So we got 4 games left. We'll do I hate to do speed rounds to them because we have time, but there's certain things that we should pay attention to. The first game is the Raiders and the Chargers. The Raiders, obviously, with this new Josh McDaniels offense, we want to know what they're going to look like. Is Carr going to feed Devontae Adams kind of like Aaron Rodgers did? Does he focus the ball still towards Hunter Renfrow? And, the one thing with Hunter Renfrow is Bryce Callahan is lined up against him. Callahan had a bad year last year by comparison, but prior to that, he was very, very good. So, Dave, what do you think? Do you think this is Devontae Adams that they feed towards, or?
I sure hope so, because I have a lot of stock in Adams this year. It's the obvious narrative that Derek Carr and Adams went to college together, and he obviously showed up then. Carr's a good quarterback. Is he top 5? Obviously not, but he's good enough to make a star. Look at what he's done with Darren Waller. So I believe in Devontae Adams, fully healthy, still young, just got paid. So I think he's going to put up same numbers he did in Green Bay.
It's going to be really interesting to see just the way that they use him as well, because obviously in Green Bay, the passing game was kind of manufactured around him, and they would shift Adams all over.
Well, they didn't pay him $140 million to not do that as well, right?
Yeah, but then do you do that when you've got like Renfrow and Waller, and if you're playing Adams inside, do you play one of those outside? It's going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah, there's a lot of question marks, like just difficult scenarios that we won't know until the games, kind of start to play out. And like the Hunter Renfrow conversation, I think there's a lot of potential for him to legitimately have an impact still, just because there's trust. He trusts in getting the ball to him, and we'll have to just kind of watch as that unfolds. On the other side of the ball, it's the same old song and dance. It's going to be Justin Herbert doing what he does best, which is put the ball in Keenan Allen's hands, get the ball into Mike Williams' hands. The question is going to be, I think, is there enough passing volume to go around for Josh Palmer to be involved? I'm a big Palmer fan, but it makes you wonder if that's a week in and week out approach. Is any strong feelings towards the Chargers offense that varies from what the norm is?
I put $200 on the Chargers to win the Super Bowl this year.
Okay.
I'm big on the Chargers. I think they've absolutely got everything they need to have a great offense. Palmer is pretty much a tight end. Is he technically a tight end, or is he wide receiver?
Split out wide. He's their X.
He's excellent. Obviously, you got amazing receivers in Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. Austin Eckler is who he is. I love the pickup of Isaiah Spiller. I think he's going to get worked in this year a bit. everything on their offense is just screaming Super Bowl contenders. So
that's what I actually have them in the Super Bowl as well. And that, goes against my Chiefs and all. But I do want to see Eckler's goal line attempts. If he's still being used at the goal line, I think that's always the running narrative each year. As he even said last year, won't be used around the goal line. And guess what? He was used around the goal line. And so if there's anything, any other things of that from an offensive standpoint that you guys want to really, really pay attention to that we might be missing out on?
You talking about for the season or this week?
No, just this week.
No.
Okay. I didn't think so. Me either necessarily. On the defensive side, it's nothing extreme. It's just going to be a fun game. I mean, you have Max Crosby against Pipkins, a tackle for the Chargers, which is going to be, exploitable. And I call it, pass rush-a-palooza, because you got Max and Chandler and Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, and it's just Derwin James. It's a Jonathan Abrams.
JC Jackson.
JC
Jackson's out.
He's
out.
Oh,
is he out?
He's hurt.
Okay,
Yeah. He had ankle surgery, and he's recovering from that. So
Gotcha.
that's the only one significance, is that he won't be lined up against Devontae most likely. So that'll give him a little bit of an edge. Austin Eckler is a DFS play for Keith at 8,200. Spend up. He's going to get involved in that offense.
30 points or more both games last year versus the Raiders.
Perfect. KC at Arizona. This is intriguing for both, because I think we're seeing a Kansas City offense that's should be defined, but it's not defined because you have too many new pieces. Both teams are without their wide receiver one. This is the question of the narrative that I don't know if you guys have an answer. I don't know if I have an answer. Is, what will Mahomes do? Will he take what's given to him, or will he try to push the ball downfield like he did? He got in trouble last year in the second half against Cincinnati. We saw that. We saw that in numerous games, that when he would actually take what was given to him underneath, no one could stop him. No one could stop the Chiefs offense because they kept moving the chains. And one person once told me, if you keep getting first downs, you'll never lose, because you always score. Oh, I guess you don't get a first down if you get stopped at the goal line, but you get the idea of what I'm saying. It's irrelevant. God bless you. And so I wonder if they're better without Tyreek. I think that's a hard thing to say, but Keith, what do you think the running back usage in KC is going to look like?
If they're smart, it's going to be a lot. I mean, I hope they learned the lesson last year. If a defense is going to give you 6 yards a carry, take it and quit throwing the freaking ball. I think that it's going to be a deal where their offense by the numbers is not as good this year. Like Mahomes' numbers are going to be down a little bit. Maybe his touchdowns are. I think the offense and the team as a whole is going to be better, if that makes sense, because they're going to be more balanced. Mm-hmm. They're going to have longer drives. And I think the real story is the Chiefs defense, I think, is going to be really good. I tried to grab them in a ton of season-long leagues for my defense. I love the additions that they made in the offseason. Mm-hmm. I think they have some real – like people are talking about Honey Badger. He's old. I mean, like, what are we talking about here? That's really going to make the difference. I love the Chiefs. I think that they're – should be rightly the favorite for the Super Bowl. And the biggest thing standing their way, to your point, is will Mahomes do what he needs to be done? I mean, what's made Brady great for all these years is, he proved in 2009 he could chunk it and, throw 60 touchdowns. But what he does most weeks in and weeks out is he just moves that ball, like just little by little, and scores and scores and scores. And he doesn't turn it over. And if Mahomes will do that this year, Chiefs are going to be unbeatable.
Jonathan, on Arizona, without DeAndre Hopkins, with the banged up Zach Ertz, I think that everybody assumes the new addition of Hollywood Brown and the rekindling of their college career. Do we think that it's going to be all Hollywood all the time? Is he going to hog the big screen, or do you think there's going to be a best supporting actor role for someone like AJ Green or Rondell? Well, Rondell Moore's banged up too. He's out. So
he's out. Yeah.
Yeah. I was a little bit intrigued by Rondell Moore if he was healthy, given all of the injuries, but I think it's mainly going to be Hollywood. I think Zach Ertz is supposed to play. Yeah. We saw when Hopkins has been out. Ertz has been very good. So I think it'll be Hollywood. I think it'll be Ertz, and I think it'll be a lot of James Conner as well.
Gotcha.
Guys, I just want to bring one thing up with the Packers game, right? Seeing that Lazard is out, week 1, Sammy Watkins.
I know.
I got him in a couple DFS lineups.
It's tempting, right? Week 1, Sammy Watkins.
I got him in a couple DFS lineups.
I wouldn't be shocked.
The recipe is there. He only plays week 1 every year. So.
I know.
Yeah.
If he gets like a 10% percentage, in DFS, it wouldn't like blow me away. It should, but it probably won't. I have some AJ Green a little bit here and there in some DFS just because he figures someone besides Hollywood or Ertz might, but I think that it's going to funnel hyper to Hollywood for the most part. I will say on the defensive side, JJ Watt might not play. So that matchup against Andrew Wiley was one I was going to exploit. But if JJ Watt's out, that just gives Mahomes a little bit more time. And I don't feel the pass rush or the pressure from anybody on Arizona because Marcus Golden isn't going to do it. And that does make me like, especially like the Juju play you have, Keith, for your DFS at 5,200, a little bit better. But I want to watch on KC side, a lot of talk about Nick Bolton, his usage going in. Will he be a true 3-down roll? Him versus Willie Gay, very important to pay attention to. George Karlaftis, right now it's Frank Clark has another quote-unquote sickness that he's dealing with. There's a lot of things off the field he's dealing with as well. If Karlaftis gets brought in from a defensive edge role, defensive line, people pay attention. There's a chance that he could be valuable pickup because he has this high motor. He's a very, very dangerous edge rusher that could be in IDP relevance. And of course, for Arizona, Isaiah Simmons, Zaven Collins, Nick Vigil. Nobody has a clue what's going on. It's just chaos there. I think there could be chaos in Tampa Bay and Dallas in that next game. Talk about both offensive lines being shaky. Dallas with Tyron Smith out. Tampa with everybody on the interior line out. What do we think? So, Jonathan, this offensive line, this interior offensive line for the Bucs banged up. Do you think that just means that they're going to lean a little bit heavier on Fournette?
I think so. I fear that this is going to be lower scoring than we'd like it to be. I think it'll be a bit more run heavy. I can see them definitely leaning more on Fournette, especially because of the injuries that they've got to the weapons. I mean, obviously Godwin, from what I've seen, he's supposed to play, but he might be limited. And then Russell Gage, I think, has been dealing with an injury as well. So yeah, I can see them leaning a little bit more on Fournette.
Yeah, I think both sides. I mean, there's question marks on both sides that I think we want to answered, at least that I want to pay attention to. Zeke and Tony Pollard shares. Will Pollard be split out wide? Can CeeDee Lamb carry the team on his shoulders? How does Godwin look? Is Julio involved, like Keith was mentioning in that Gronk role that could be important? All of these questions, we have to answer. But I also want to answer a little bit about this underdog prop bet that we have that we can look at here with Dak and Tom Brady. And remember, with Underdog Fantasy, if you decide to go ahead and dip your toe into the pond in underdog prop bets and you use the promo code FRAMES, you will match 100% of your first deposit up to $100. So promo code FRAMES, $100, and we're going to help you double your money with these first couple picks at quarterback. Guys, Dak Prescott here. Higher or lower? Dave, I'll start with you. Of the 0.5 interceptions.
Yeah, I'll take the higher. I think he throws a pick.
Yeah,
I do.
Keith, taking the over there?
I mean, I'd stay away to be honest, but if you're forcing me to, sure, I'd take the over.
All right, there's $10, $20 of your money. Let's do 4 more to make it an even 100. Higher or lower on the 273 passing yards?
I think
Jonathan.
higher.
Okay, Dave, higher. Jonathan?
Personally, I would, with the offensive line injuries, we don't quite know how this, outside of CeeDee Lamb, how it's going to stack up. Personally, I would go lower.
And Keith?
I'd take the over.
All right, so then that's probably going to allude to this next question is the 18.75 fantasy points. Keith, we'll start with you.
That's, I guess, traditional scoring, right?
Yeah, I'm going to guess it's probably
like
4
for
passing.
yeah.
I should know this. I'll know this for next week.
I'll take the over and go ahead and also throw in the 14.5 rushing yards. They've talked about Dak running more this year, and I think you'll see it week 1 with the offensive line. I mean, if he gets 4 40, 50 yards rushing, that 18 points is nothing. And obviously go over the rushing yards as well.
Speaking of Dak, you guys just got that notice. The Cowboys had a scare during practice this week when Dak Prescott felt like something popped in his foot. So they quickly took him for x-rays and worried it was something serious. Supposedly it's come back negative, but that's something to keep an eye out for.
Oh, God. It's terrifying.
Sheesh. Alrighty, so that probably means that this
on second thought, I'm going to take lower on every one of those across the board.
And the 14.5 rushing yards, I would take lower on that because I don't believe that's you get double points for hopping on 1 foot for more than 7.25. So that has been your underdog prop bets. Again, remember to use promo code FRAMES to match 100% of your first $100 deposit. And that takes us to the defensive side of the ball for Tampa Bay, Dallas real quick. I think Micah Parsons, in a game where they know the offensive line is in shambles, could be sent on a ton of pass rushes. Don't know if that's indicative for the whole season, but something to pay attention to. Love the matchup of DeMarcus Lawrence and Tristan Wirfs, the only true 1v1, if you want, of solid studs. And that's about the only significant playing, I guess, intrigue that I have with that game. That takes us to Monday night. Final game, guys. Denver at Seattle. Russell Wilson reunion tour starts in Seattle, ends in Seattle, because that's the only reunion he would have. But question I have, will the Denver Broncos, Keith, let Russ cook? Or are they going to lean on the run? Use this week. They should.
Lean on the run.
Nope, not should do.
What
will they do?
They're going to run the ball. I mean, it's going to be 50-50. They're not going to let Russell go out. I really don't. Even though I know he probably wants to, they're not going to go out there and throw it 70% of the time and be airing out all over the place. Denver, I think, has a chance to be a legit Super Bowl contender if Russ is just the Russ that we saw in Seattle with it's almost a better version of the Seattle team that he had around him when they were a perennial Super Bowl team. Because, he's got 2 great running backs. He's got good wide receivers. They got a good defense. I love Denver this year, but I said it when I was, we were talking about quarterbacks coming into the season. I think Russell is a pretty sure top 10 QB at the end of the year, but I don't think you're going to see like that, top 5 from him because they're going to be more balanced.
Boring. Jonathan, give me an answer. Come on. Say he's going to air it out 65% of the time for 380 and 4 touchdowns.
It would be very funny if he was throwing for like 400 yards just to see like Pete Carroll's face on the sideline, just be like, oh, wait, I could have had that.
Mm-hmm. But you're guessing it's probably the Javonte and Melvin and Gordon show.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what this offense is like with Hackett coming across. And we don't know that they're going to hit the ground running. Obviously, they've got all these pieces around, but it is a completely new offense with all of these kind of new pieces. So, I wouldn't be surprised to see it more balanced. Obviously, in Green Bay, they were very heavy on the run with both Jones and Dillon. So you could see the same kind of thing happening in Denver.
Dave, is Rashad Penny going to actually be valuable this week?
I have so much stock of Rashad Penny. I sure hope so.
Me too. Me too.
Look, it's the same narrative we've heard. He was the number 1 running back over the last 5 games. Mm-hmm. I expect that to continue. If we have a healthy Rashad Penny, what he did at SDSU was out of this world, and he's shown that in the last 5 games. I think it continues. I think he's got a chance to finish the season as a top 5 running back.
Okay.
I
love it, but I worry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, we know what Pete Carroll's tendencies are, but then the other thing is that obviously Ken Walker has been struggling with injuries. I'm not 100% sure if he's supposed to be playing or not on Monday, but yeah, I think we can, as long as he's healthy, I think we should be playing him despite despite the matchups, even if it looks as though there's going to be a negative game script. We know that Seattle will want to run the ball, and as long as Penny's there and he's on the field, then I think we can kind of have some confidence in him.
Yeah. That one's a tough one. It's like, man, I know what I want to have happen and what I think's going to happen. That's two different. I mean, if Rashad Penny comes out and looks really, really good against a Denver defense like this, I don't think anybody's going to be disappointed, because if you have him, you knew what you were getting into. You were getting the danger zone of the guy that's played less than 60% of his games in his career. It's a scary proposition. But you and I, Dave, that's enough to support him on. Come on, Rashad. You have our support. Speaking of support, can Geno Smith support DK, Lockett, both or neither? Jonathan?
Probably neither to the level that we want. I mean, Lockett is the one that I don't think I have any shares of at all, just because even with Wilson, he was, the last couple of years, he's been really inconsistent. Obviously, you'd get those huge games where he'd score 40, 50 points and you'd win your week. And then the next week, he'd have 2 catches for 20 yards. And I just fear that with Geno Smith, you're just not going to see them getting into that. That was the point I was going to make on additional point on Penny, is that I just don't think we'll see them get to the red zone enough. I don't think we'll see them score enough points. So yeah, there might be a decent amount of kind of volume, but I can't see the upside.
Yeah, I don't think the guy can support his own family, let alone a team.
Whoa!
But the guy's I'm shocked that he beat Drew Lock for the job. I really am. I was expecting Lock to be there. Lock makes sense for the Seahawks. He's a pass-first quarterback. He can still run a little bit. I mean, they just know Geno's going to try to sneak the ball. And, the only piece of the Seahawks I want is Rashad Penny and nothing else.
If there's a positive to potentially try to have is from weeks 5 through 8 with Geno at the helm, DK had weeks of 5 targets, 7 targets, 5 targets, 6 targets, 5 receptions, 6 reception, only 2, but those 2 for 96 yards, and then 6. In each one of those games, well, not each one, but in those games, he put up standard scoring alone. Let's go to PPR. I don't know why it defaults to standard. Like probably because we're talking about pagers and payphones. It's like automatically listens, like Siri's listening in. She's like, let's go to standard scoring for this old man. But yeah, it's 26 points, 22 points, 18 points, 12. So maybe support DK, but both, I have a hard time believing. Keith, any other narratives from this game whatsoever that you're paying attention to before?
Just to remind people, home dogs early in the season do very well against the spread. So all these people, if you're betting, don't take a bunch of road favorites. That is a huge mistake. You get killed usually weeks 1 through 6. Just be mindful. And this is one of them that I'm looking at right here is the Denver-Seattle game.
I see a lot of people talking about Denver as their eliminator favorite for the week. I mean, it's in Seattle, 12th man. The last thing to talk about is, of course, on defense, Cody Barton, one of our Fantasy and Frames favorites at linebacker. Obviously, our good friend Mike Wollert's whole house is probably resting on Cody Barton's standing as the end of the season, since that was his man. He's my man as well. I'm definitely rooting for him. But that wraps up week 1, just a shade under 150 minutes. Not bad. That was about 20 minutes a team or 20 minutes a matchup. Next week, we'll probably shave a little off that, but I think we'll actually have some true numbers instead of narrative, and speculation always.
The boss will be here cracking the whip too, Nate. So
that is, we'll see. We'll see these ratings when they come out. They'll be dynamite because of all of our performances, and they'll all be in mourning as maybe 1, 2. All right. Our teams, the 4 of us, Chiefs, Packers, Patriots. Well, it is them Falcons. Who wins? Who loses? Do the Chiefs win or lose, Jonathan?
I have the Chiefs winning.
Chiefs win or lose, Keith?
They win.
Chiefs win or lose, Dave?
Yeah, Chiefs win.
Patriots win or lose?
Lose.
Okay. Keith?
I got them winning.
Okay. Jonathan?
Lose.
Packers against Vikings. Win or lose, Jonathan?
Lose.
Keith,
I've got them winning. Rodgers always kills in Minnesota.
Dave,
No, I got him losing.
and Keith, Atlanta Falcons, win or lose.
Yeah, they're winning. They're gonna give me one more week of being undefeated.
All right, Jonathan, win or lose.
Lose. Sorry, Keith.
And Dave.
I think this is a surprise. I think they're going to win.
Okay.
I got the Falcons winning.
Damn it. That was almost a clean set. Everybody almost picked their home team to lose except for Keith. I would have picked the Chiefs to win because they're playing Arizona, and I don't have much faith in Arizona early on. But for Keith, Jonathan, Dave, that wraps up week one. Guys, we got about half hour, and then we actually get to watch all of this bullshit talk turn into actual fantasy relevance. So thank you all for tuning in. We will see you next week.